Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby, and I am your host, Liv, here with another conversation episode. Today, I am speaking with returning guest Charlotte Gregory. Now, you may remember Charlotte from, or Dr. Charlotte Gregory, I should say. I like to be sure when people have doctors involved. Dr. Charlotte Gregory, you might remember her from a couple years back where we talked about representations of Achilles specifically and masculinity broadly in reception of epic. So that's what she studies, like very specifically Achilles and masculinity, but like in reception. So naturally, when the Odyssey was first, the trailers were first coming out and everything, we reconnected. And particularly, we reconnected around the idea that Elliot Page was going to play Achilles. Now, of course, that's not what happened. And Achilles is not even in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, but such is life. We wanted to have a just sort of general conversation about the Odyssey and reception and her take on it, as somebody who does study, masculinity so specifically in modern receptions of epic, which is of course like fascinating and so far removed from ancient masculinity and all of this. So I was thrilled to have her on. The caveat that I'm leading up to is that because this is the first like real recorded conversation that I've had about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, listening back, I took over too much and I talked too much in this episode as compared to Charlotte, and so apologies, but such is life. I am the brain is the ADHD and the overwhelm and the general nervous system breakdown is such that sometimes I just talk too much and don't realize until it is far too late. And so we did have a great conversation, but I'm just sort of warning you because I wish it had less of my voice and more of Charlotte's voice. Regardless, we had a lot of fun. We talked both about my very mostly negative feelings about the movie and Charlotte's pretty positive feelings about the movie. So I was really just also excited to have that opportunity for you all where it is both a conversation about the movie and also with somebody who didn't immediately hate it. You're welcome. So general spoilers for the movie, I would say, but it's mostly us just talking about his decisions and such. It's not like us breaking down a storyline of changes or what have you. We just happen to mention some of the major changes that he makes as compared to the actual Odyssey, particularly because we talked about Elliot Page, and Elliot Page's character is not in Homer at all. There we have it. So thank you all. Please do enjoy this freewheeling, very all over the place, but also very nuanced and much more open-minded take on Christopher Nolan's Odyssey and everything with it. Conversations. The Americanness of modern masculinity in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey with Dr. Charlotte Gregory. Oh God, where do we even begin? Okay, so to the listener, this episode is sort of an odd confluence of various things. So I am here with the returning guest, Charlotte Gregory. Hi, thank you.
Hello.
And you came on a couple years ago to talk about Achilles in reception.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when we reconnected a couple months ago, when the whole world thought that Elliot Page was going to play Achilles, and we were like, oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. Let's prepare an episode with that expectation. And then thankfully, because we were going to record even before the movie had come out, but thankfully various time-related things happened, so we rescheduled enough times that now we've both seen the movie, and obviously Elliot Page is not playing Achilles. But there's still so much to talk about, and especially with you as somebody who does look at reception so much more than I do, which I think is really good because I actually like, not that I dislike reception, but I often just, it's not like my passion. I more get like
I just want to see different things, and then I get like frustrated by reception more than anything. But as you said off mic, the episodes I have recorded about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey have been mad, just me mad. And you're not wrong. And so I am excited to talk to someone who has seen it and didn't hate it like I did, which is great. And then also has this background of reception because, like you were saying off mic, like you could see why he was making these decisions, which I'm so curious about because I didn't love a lot of his decisions.
No, you didn't.
And it's so frustrating because I'm trying to figure out how to just even like phrase this in my work because I knew I wasn't going to like it. Like this is not me who was like, oh my god, I'm so excited, like it's going to be so good. Like this, I knew it was going to not be what I wanted, and that was fine. Probably if I hadn't been, in the realm of like, oh, I've recently published an Odyssey retelling, like I wouldn't have gone so publicly to see the movie, and I probably would just like try not to talk about it at all. It's very similar with what I do about Epic the Musical. Just zip my lips at this point. Maybe a discussion for another time. But it's, I wasn't going to like it, but at the same time, I still found myself like epically disappointed even in that realm. So I don't know. It's all to say I'm trying to like find more positive ways of speaking about it, even just because like it is still very good for the overall classics world, like the people studying it, like the general interest. It's always good. I'm always glad to have people finding Greek mythology and developing a passion. I've certainly got fresh listeners and certainly book buyers from this movie, so I'm not like entirely angry about it, and I'm kind of excited to have a different perspective.
Yes.
Especially from someone who's like comes at it from Achilles, who I don't know quite where to begin, but like I mean, maybe we could just talk a slight bit about were you also disappointed that Elliot Page was not playing Achilles? Were you disappointed to not see Achilles at all? Like maybe we'll just base it around him to begin.
Yeah, let's start with my main guy. In terms of like him not being in the film, honestly, like the disappointment levels were quite low because he's so minor in the Odyssey anyway. So like when people were losing their shit over Elliot Page potentially playing Achilles, I'm like, guys, he's such a minor character.
He'll be there for
like,
5 minutes.
He's not important in the Odyssey, so like it wasn't worth getting angry about. I mean, even if he were a bigger character, it's not worth getting that angry about. But like, I wasn't
also
too
just the transphobes, right? Like, let's just say what it is, right? It's transphobes who are mad, and also like loser, hyper, quote unquote masculine dudes who are pissed. Like, just I mean, it's all based on transphobia.
It was like conservative men. Like the amount of like social, and this is what I thought was so interesting, is like all these videos and discourse I was seeing online were from these, I think, predominantly white men, American, and they're like talking about the ancient texts and like what Achilles was like in the ancient, and I'm like, you understand there's not like one version of Achilles, right? Like he transforms so much across different ancient sources, and then he's had 2,000 years of reception. Like it's not going to be exactly like in the Iliad. Like we don't want that. That's boring otherwise. Like it's fun to have something different, and with Elliot Page, it would have been very interesting. I don't know if he would have necessarily have been the right casting for Achilles because, like, he definitely got massively in shape for the role.
Yeah.
But he didn't necessarily scream warrior.
Yeah.
But he was perfect for the role he was then cast as this version of Sinon. So, like...
I don't know if as they all want to say. No, I want to say sign on too, which is why I wanted to point it out, because we will say sign on because Sinon is just bizarre. But I just flagged it.
Oh, I was like, oh my god, I forgot that wrong.
No.
But with the idea of like a trans man playing Achilles, well, one, it also doesn't necessarily matter because just because a trans man is playing Achilles doesn't mean the character is trans.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing. But also Achilles does have this history both in like ancient texts and receptions, hugely in receptions pre sort of 19th, 20th century or pre-20th century of playing with gender
Mm-hmm.
and disrupting gendered expectations of this traditional masculine warrior. I mean, the relationship with Achilles goes against a lot of not
Mm-hmm. Patroclus.
relationship with Patroclus. Oh my goodness, one of those days. The
I get it.
relationship. So the relationship with Patroclus goes against these expectations, but also the whole incident on Skyros where
Mm-hmm.
he's disguised as a girl, and that is like hugely popular reception in sort of opera and art. And so like there is this history and precedent to have played with expectations around Achilles' gender. So
Mm-hmm.
I would have been interested to see how they would do that. But it didn't happen. So
Yeah. But that was the thing, is I think that I got a little bit optimistic with that
Mm,
idea because I thought it would have been really interesting. And in hindsight, I'm like, okay, if I had known more or paid more attention to Christopher Nolan's work, like I've seen a handful of his movies, but not in a very long time. And I just don't think about him that much. Which is fine by me. And so maybe I, wouldn't have been so optimistic had I been more aware. But I did just think like, that potential casting, as well as Lupita Nyong'o as Helen,
mm,
were both castings that had actually made me really optimistic in a way that I hadn't been expecting from day one. Like the movie got announced and they said it was Matt Damon, and I went, okay,
yeah,
I wipe my hands of it. Like, this is not going to be for me. They have cast like the single most modern American man imaginable. Like, I was like, okay, cool. No, this is going to be American propaganda, and it's probably going to be bad and whatever. Like, I was pretty there by just the name Matt Damon being attached.
No, I think we all had a moment of going, okay, that's an interesting choice for
Really?
Odysseus. And to be fair, I think he did a good job at their version of
Yeah,
Odysseus.
I hated him less than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like I said, I mean, I was really expecting to hate him. But that was the thing, is like I didn't have any expectations, but then hearing Elliot Page and hearing his name linked to Achilles, I was like, ooh, that could be so interesting. Because to me, if that had actually gone through, I think it would have been like a really potentially fascinating way to not just examine how Achilles does play with gender in across the ancient sources, and like you said, in reception as well. Like, it's very clear, it's all there, right? That
Yeah.
wouldn't have been an invention. Like, sure, but and it, like you said too, just because a trans man is playing him doesn't mean he would be trans. But and I don't necessarily think that would have been like a particularly innovative idea, but I think it would have been interesting just on the face to have a trans man playing this character, because by doing that, you are, especially a man like Elliot, who came out so publicly and who has worked with Nolan, before
Yeah.
transition and now after. Like, I thought it would have been really interesting. And I thought too, because Christopher Nolan was clearly happy to still work with Elliot Page
Mm,
as compared to, when he had worked with the former Ellen Page. Like,
yeah.
I hope dead naming isn't the same in those cases. I feel like you're cast as Ellen, so if I talk about it in the past. Anyway,
Yeah.
apologies to anyone, and feel free to point it out to me if that's not okay. But I was really interested in that possibility, and then having just the actual, just the visual, the choice to have a trans man playing that character would have been, I think, also a really solid step in a progressive and empathetic direction for the world. I think it
Yeah.
would have really shown a sense of care for broader gender identities and been like, hey, like, look at this is a way to play with that, and it does come straight from the ancient world, with or without making any transness in Achilles, but like through that character. So I'll just say, I thought it was going to be would have been quite interesting. And it's not to say that Elliot's character was not interesting, but I
No,
was like,
I thought
ooh,
Elliot actually killed it, and this is
yeah.
someone who's not necessarily the biggest fan of his acting. I've never been particularly. I love Juno and stuff, but like since then, kind of been a bit unsure about him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
I was also thinking, like, outside of Juno, I can't immediately name like, oh, that's a one that I loved. But
yeah, but he absolutely crushed it. I mean, I
yeah.
thought he was brilliant. I thought he was very well cast for the role he ended up playing, and
Yeah.
I mean the scene in the underworld. Ooh, that
Yeah.
was that was
That was
good.
it was good, I will say, yeah. And that's I think that's what excited me about it being Achilles too, like, in the underworld like
Yeah,
that, ooh, that would have been fun. I mean,
D-
it was still fun, but I just don't because this sign-on character is not in Homer at
yeah.
all, I just, I have so little, like, kind of connection to him personally, but I imagine, like, just people watching the movie wouldn't feel that, which is good. It's similar, and we will make this not just about, like, what I had personally hoped was coming. But I just thought, like, if that had been the intention with Achilles, to have him played by, and I do think, like, I don't know, Achilles is also, I mean, in addition to playing with gender, he is also this kind of hero that I think, if we're going from a very ancient perspective, I think that, like, trying to just like figure out how to put into words what I mean. But like I don't think there's ever any implication that Achilles is like big, huge, tough man, right? Like that's
Yeah.
Ajax. That there are those men, we know who they are, and they're not Achilles. Like Achilles, I think, is meant to be this kind of warrior that is like live more than he is like big
Mm.
and bulky, like really able to I mean, subverting the expectations, I guess, of like what is a quote unquote warrior. And so I think it would have been interesting to kind of see that played with.
Yeah, because his whole defining feature is he's swift-footed. His speed
Yeah.
and agility is like his defining like martial characteristic.
Yeah. And son of
So
a goddess. So he's like pretty too. You got to imagine, you
like
know?
he's meant to be like, very visually, I think, striking.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I do think he is meant to be quite tall, but
Mm.
that's not the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um but he's not bulky. Like he is
Yeah.
not Brad Pitt in Troy, which
Yeah.
all the memes then coming out being like, 2004 Achilles versus 2026 Achilles, and a picture of Elliot Page. And I'm like, well, one, you guys were all wrong. You were getting angry over like
Yeah.
literally a non-existent issue. But also like it's weird how Brad Pitt he keeps being held up as this ideal of like what Achilles should have been.
Yes.
I'm like, well, no, like the man was nearly 40 years old
Yeah.
at the time of filming. Like he was way too old. He's way too muscular, like bulky. He wasn't perfect casting. They just liked him because it's Brad Pitt and he's this sexy, Hollywood big name.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I mean, also like, it's been interesting to see the people hearkening back to Troy, which is otherwise a movie that I feel like for the last 10 years, it's only been nerds like us who regularly talk about it.
Yeah, I'm seeing all these people and they're talking about how Troy got it like, oh, Odyssey, like, oh, this is woke. Because even if we don't have an obviously trans Achilles version of
Mhm.
Achilles, it's still a trans actor is cast in the film. You have a black actress playing Helen of Troy. People are still it's still too diverse. And so they're going, I'm going to go back to Troy and, watch the good stuff. And I was like, I remember when Troy came out, like, I don't remember when it came out, but I remember
No.
reading reviews. It was not well received. Audiences didn't have this same, like, level of almost not worship, but like they're really putting it on a pedestal as this like accurate, great adaptation. And that's
Yeah.
people liked it they found enjoyable film, but they weren't saying like this is, the best.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, I
It's
mean,
weird
it,
revisionist like looking back.
and I would like to, I mean, I think I'm comfortable in assuming too that a majority of the people looking back at it as this, like, quote unquote, correct,
Yeah.
like, casting are also too young to have been around for the discourse around it. Because, like, I mean, I'm 38 and I was only 16 when that movie came out. Like, I remember seeing it, but I don't
Yeah.
remember discourse around it. And
No.
like, I can't imagine that the men getting so worked up, getting so emotional about this, are that much older than me. Like, I doubt it.
No, it is just people are they're angry because it doesn't fit their ideas of what masculinity should be
Yeah.
and what the ancient world should be. And they tie it so closely to their own sense of identity that
Mhm.
it becomes like a personal attack on them.
It's so much like when Wilson translated the Iliad.
Mm.
Like when you phrase it like that, it just makes me think of like the reaction from men about her translation and the way they absolutely lost their minds at this idea that
Oh
the
yeah.
Iliad is not an explicitly like pro-war poem. You're like, I don't know what you were reading before, but she is not the one to make it not a pro-war poem.
Like, she's a translator. She's working. She's interpreting, yes, but she is working with what she's got. I mean, translators, kudos to them. It's
Oh my god.
a hard
And when
job.
they're doing it into a meter?
Oh my god, how does she do that?
No idea. No idea.
No. Yeah, the whole thing is just absurd when
It's
you
just angry men on the internet.
they do, and this is something I find so interesting, and I kind of going forward in research, I really want to look more at like social media and receptions of the ancient world and like how it ties to identity.
Oof.
Not just the right wing, but also LGBT communities will take the ancient world quite, you know, close to heart
Yeah.
and get upset when it doesn't quite fit their version either. So it's just interesting how this text, thousands of years old, is still really speaking to people, but in such vastly different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so indicative of the quality of these ancient texts and just the way that like humans are always going to human.
Yes.
Just that I think that as I've done like just a little bit of press around the Odyssey for like my book and just like really local stuff.
Mm,
And that's a question I got asked a handful of times of like, why is it something that still resonates so today? And I really think the best way to describe it is like humans are still human. Like it's just these things
yeah.
are so timeless. But in the same way that like people were mad back then about certain characters and inversions and characterizations, and
Oh
people are
yeah.
mad now, right? Like
I mean, ancient, authors, I think I talked about this in the last episode of you. It's like there was so much argument about Achilles, for example, just like, was he in a sexual relationship with Patroclus? And then who was the older and who was in what role? And there's always arguing, and because you can interpret a lot from these texts.
yeah, and these characters matter in these like really differing ways across the millennia, but they still
Mm,
matter. And they it's so indicative of just the way that humanity interacts with things like this, and how everyone does kind of find their own thing to be, so I don't know, passionate about, but also to like latch
yeah,
on in this way that can be like hurt them or be healthy. It's just
absolutely. I feel quite one of the benefits of studying specifically classical reception studies and in popular media is I've had to kind of learn to detach
yeah.
and look at the reception, um and kind of like what it's doing and why it's doing things, and separate it from like what I think a text should be doing, and try and
Yeah.
understand the why a bit
That
more.
is it's fun that you phrase it like that, because that's always what I've struggled with when it
Yeah.
comes to certain types of reception, because I do wonder where all these decisions are coming from. And for me, it's just been that like that takes me out of something, which I can imagine would be great reason to study it. So you're coming at it from like the right position, because like that's what interests you. Whereas for
Yeah.
me, I'm often just asked like if I've read this or that, and I'm just like, those questions take me out of it and also make me like just less into, I don't have that drive. I want to understand it, but often I'm like, no, but if there's no explanation, like it's just not.
Yeah.
It just rubs the wrong part in my brain, where I'm glad that there are people who are like, no, this is the thing I love.
Yeah, I mean, just when I was saying, like, I think off camera, I was like, Nolan's decisions, I was like, I can absolutely understand pretty much all the choices he made. As
Yeah.
someone who studied Hollywood epic cinema, I
Yeah.
was like, he was very much creating, it was not, an ancient epic, it was a Hollywood epic film. And he was working, and that has its own like conventions
Hmm.
and features and history as a genre. And then you have like cinema as a medium in general has its own history. Um, and so that's what I saw Nolan doing, is choices that were harking, but so many visual references in that film, like he was like chock-a-block of like references to other cinema or like artwork,
Oh.
or like Polyphemus eating the man,
Yeah. Oh, that was
the head,
that's so
Saturn
funny.
eating.
I
I
didn't
clocked that. I mean, I felt so smug when I saw people talking about it on the internet afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I got that.
I was so taken up by my, like, why is Polyphemus like this?
Yeah.
That I just didn't even think of that. But then the second you phrased it like that, I was like, oh my God, I love that painting so much. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, and there's I've seen some comments talking about how the Trojan horse coming out of the water, which is
Mm,
just objectively a bizarre.
yeah.
There are some decisions in the film that made no sense, like
Practically
logically.
speaking. Yeah, exactly.
I was like,
Logically, like
that made no
how,
sense. The
why?
giants in the armor made no sense to me. Not because they're meant to be barbarians, but I was just like logically, I was taken out because I was like, that's some really intricate armor. They're obviously they've just been chilling, hear the child scream, and they come to defend the child. I'm like, were they already in their armor? Were they just like hanging around wearing armor? That seems odd. So
Yeah,
that was like, but
they were baffling.
they were baffling, but he was going for visual and spectacle in this film, absolutely, which is like one of the most important things for a Hollywood epic film. Like
Mm.
it is spectacle. Um and the horse out the water, that was kind of almost a Planet of the Apes reference
Oh my
with the
God, so
Statue of
true.
Liberty, which when
Yeah.
you think about it makes a lot of sense because the film, a key sort of point he's trying to make or explore is this like collapse of
Yeah.
civilization.
Yeah.
And so a reference to a film that is all about the collapse of human civilization and rise of another, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I and like the characterization, like Odysseus made total sense when you put him in the context of Hollywood cinema,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's very hard to root for OG Odysseus.
Ugh, I know, and that's why I love him.
He's so interesting and complex, and the thing is, we can have anti-heroes, because I think he does kind of play into that role, but that tends to be explored more in TV. I mean, honestly, I feel like ancient epic poems they should be in TV
I've
only.
thought that ever since, like,
Because
Troy. I'm really, I would kill for a Game of Thrones style.
well, they tried a bit with Troy Fall of a City.
I know. I
Um,
don't want to blame the BBC, but
no, BBC
I
had a
mean,
role. Netflix
it wasn't.
had a
Yeah,
role in it.
it was just.
It wasn't as great as it could have been, which is a
Yeah.
shame because I met the executive producer Derek Wax, and he was so
Oh,
passionate.
I remember that from our
Yeah.
episode because I think you made me want to watch it again, which I clearly didn't do, but I should. I remember that now of you talking about that, me being like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I need to give it another chance.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of really interesting stuff in that series.
Yeah.
And but I just don't think it was as effective as it could have been. Nolan's, I think, is very effective and successful as a Hollywood epic film.
Yeah.
It ticks every box. The hero, Odysseus, is absolutely like this family man. That's such a trend in ancient epic cinema. Going from like Spartacus, with his love interest. It's always about like one female love interest.
Yep.
And you have to have them, be honorable and a moral figure. Oh god, what was there's one like really obvious one that's a completely escaped. Oh, Gladiator.
Oh yeah,
Maximus, the family man, like that really solidified it, and so it becomes this kind of reflection of like ideal like Western like
Mm-hmm.
relationships, like nuclear family is like a really big thing. So it
Yeah.
makes sense why he focused so much in that. And as
Yeah.
a result, these really interesting female characters like Circe and Calypso are completely reduced to like their bare. But I mean, Calypso,
Yeah.
I
No, I think
wasn't
reduced is
Calypso.
even like reduced
That's
is even a strong word for what, because it really like Calypso. I mean, yeah, the women disappointed me, as you heard clearly if you listened
yeah.
to my like absolutely rage feel. I'm like slightly embarrassed by the second episode I did. I don't know, but I think people, whatever. But I'm just rage fueled. It's fine. But like Calypso, and I haven't had a chance to speak really in detail about anyone except for my ramblings about Helen, but Calypso was disappointing to me because like I understand there is a lot of ambiguity around like Odysseus's choice or lack thereof to be
Mm.
with Calypso. I mean, or rather, I think people impose ambiguity on there. I think it's pretty clear in the poem what the intention is that
Oh
like
yeah.
he was happy at the beginning and then he got tired and now he wants to go home.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that's yeah, pretty clearly what it is. It's similarly with, there is no ambiguity about his romantic relationship with Cersei. Like it's there. It is very clearly in the text,
Yeah.
And so it's always frustrating to me. And like I understand why you're never going to show that in a movie about the man being a good guy, but I also think I'm just perpetually disappointed because I think that there is a space for that, like a space for acknowledging that this is the way stories existed, and that kind of thing is that I think what we do by removing those complexities of a character like that, just removing the choices that he makes that do harm his wife,
Mm.
we inadvertently, or not even inadvertently, but intentionally place the place the male hierarchy on a further pedestal than it already is, right? Because men do cheat on their wives incredibly regularly. And especially right now, there is like a horrific epidemic of male violence against their partners and
Oh
all
yeah.
of these different things, right? Like, it's worse now than ever, I think, especially with the internet, because they're using the internet for it. And so I just think like I understand, but that's because I understand how Western propaganda works. But I just think like I wish there was a place for acknowledging this, because I think it would benefit everybody if we were to realize that like these kinds of issues are timeless, and that means that if they were happening back then, they're happening now, and we can be aware rather than pretend like the perfect man is just like
Yeah.
pretend that a perfect man exists. Like I think that that's so harmful, and not even just like cheating or not cheating, but like I just don't see the value in pretending that anyone is perfect, man or otherwise, but specifically men. My misandry is getting stronger by the day, and I'm no longer apologizing for it, because if they would stop being so fucking terrible so publicly, then I would stop being a misandrist. Sorry.
Oh god. No, I love that. There was something, I think, in the film you can reduce the kind of Odysseus's mistakes to kind of almost moments of stupidity, like just not like when he shoots the arrow and
Yeah.
stuff.
None of it's
And
intentional.
it's not intentional, but I remember there was something, or when the men eat the castle, and I befriended the lady sat next to me in the cinema, because she was throughout, I was loving her reaction. She'd be like, "Oh fuck," or like really like gasping, and eventually she went, "Sorry if I'm annoying you." I went, "No, this is great." I'm like writing it in my notes, being like, "Lady next to me," gasped. Lady next to me said, "Oh shit," like, and I
I hope
talked
the
to her.
person next to me was doing that, because I was my exclamations during, like, oh my, I must have been absurd in that theater.
Well, I loved it, but she at one point turned to me and she went, because I in passing I mentioned like, "Oh, I'm going to go on a podcast. I'm just trying to like, take notes. Like this is kind of what I study." And she went. So then she was asking me all these questions throughout, like being like, "Why are they doing that? Why is the?" And so when they ate the cat, she literally went, "Why are they doing that?" And I was like, "Man," they're and she just went, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah. That's like the story. That's the answer to like every choice.
Oh dear. It it was a very interesting film, and I completely appreciate every point you're saying about like the complexities and how it'd be so interesting to explore. The only thing is, you would have a completely different type of film then.
Yeah, I know.
It
This
would
is the thing, is what I want is not a Hollywood film.
no.
Yeah, which I recognize, but like I can still dream,
Oh, absolutely. Like you can still absolutely want that complexity and miss the nuances. But it means, yeah, it just, with the current state of like
Yeah.
Hollywood,
No, it would never. Yeah.
it's not a possibility.
No.
As long as it is following Odysseus, like the Odyssey does, I think we're going to, for the most part, I mean, we do get the Telemachus moments as well, but we, I just think cinema in its current state, and TV as well, will be so focused on the primary protagonist that they just won't be interested in exploring the female characters to the same extent.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, it's it's always been like this, and it's getting more, right? Like, women are not getting more representation. In certain cases, maybe, but not in things like that. Like, I think
No.
epics will never be accepted as being
It's a very male genre,
yeah.
which is why it was great to study as someone who's interested in receptions of masculinity and male sexualities. Great for me, lots to talk about, but oh my god, sorry, my cat.
Surprise cat. I'm interested in that because, like, obviously, I could keep talking about how disappointed I was by the women generally, but I'm curious about, as someone who is interested in, this representations of masculinity and everything like that, like,
Yeah. Or
what were
what my
you
thoughts were.
yeah, like,
I'm
what were
looking
you
at my notes app right now from when I was in the film. My first thing is literally, my first comment was, "Oh shit, Elliot," because he's like the first one you see, and then
yeah,
I went, "Fab casting,
yeah.
perfect."
He looks so good. Like, I just wanna I don't
Oh,
know.
he looks amazing.
I haven't seen a lot of him like all that much just
Well, I
because
was
I'm
having a
not that
moment.
interested in celebrity stuff, but like,
Yeah,
yeah, he looks good.
I was like, "Do I fancy Elliot Page?" I was very
I'm
confused.
certainly not against it. What's funny is that, like, he looks like I am absolutely am attracted to him, but he looks to me young, even though I know he's not younger
He's
than me.
39, so because
I know. Okay, so
I was
yeah,
look because I
yeah.
was looking up if he was playing Achilles, he would have been only like a couple of years younger than Brad Pitt was, and Brad
Right.
Pitt was way too old.
Yeah.
So I was like, but he looks so young, and so he
Yeah.
played this character Xenon, who is transformed from basically another Odysseus in the Aeneid. Like
Yeah.
he's fully aware of the plan. He is lying. He's deceitful. Like he's a tricky. Like he's tricking them. But here he's this very innocent young. Like he's meant to be, I guess, in his 20s or so, like early 20s. Like
Yeah.
and he played it brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like
I know, I was
yeah.
looking at him and I'm like, I'm attracted to you, but I'm like, am I too old for you? But I'm like, I know I'm objectively not.
No, he's like
He's older.
a year or
Yeah.
two older than you.
Well,
Yeah.
and having grown up watching his movies where he looked around the same age as me, like, yeah, that
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 man
makes
does not
sense. But
age.
no, he's just looking good. I also think, and I mean this as a compliment, but it always feels like weird to point out, but like, he looks better as a man. You can tell that that
Yeah.
was what was in there the whole time because
Yeah,
he
I
looks like a oh
didn't
man,
fancy him before. Now I
no,
do. Now,
absolutely, yeah, he's
which again,
looking good, and
yeah,
I
and
love that.
love that for him.
Yeah,
So it's nice to see him thriving because again, like I can't remember if I said this on mic or not. I was not a fan of his acting before. Apart from June, I did
yeah,
not find him a particularly convincing actor. In this, oh no, he
yeah,
crushed it absolutely. Like one of the outstanding performances in
yeah,
the film for me. Because I think in the film, the acting I think is fine. Some is good, but you can tell in terms of dialogue and like the actual material, like the female character, like Zendaya, has like nothing to work
no,
with.
no, it was the writing because you could really tell with a lot. The women broadly, the writing was just like, could you give them something? Like, I think
Something to work with.
yeah, exactly. Anne Hathaway did a good job. I honestly was a bit when I saw the trailers, I was a bit worried because we're getting so much of,
Mhm.
these and I do not blame the women doing it, but
Yeah.
so much Botox, there's such an expectation to never age, and therefore we're getting so many actors who can no longer move their faces in ways that seem compelling, and I was a little worried because there was a
Yeah, I
shot in
saw
the
that.
trailer, yeah, where it looked like, oh god. But no, she has a very expressive face still, and she did a really good job with what he gave her, I think.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I thought she did a good job. Again, not quite the Penelope I would have liked, but
No.
there's no real cunning was not a thing
No.
Nolan was interested in exploring. He
In the Odyssey, an epic that is almost explicitly about two cunning characters.
he clearly this is a director who has really been moving into sort of different forms of epic cinema, and so I think it makes sense he was like, I want to make like an ancient world epic film. Like that's kind of like a pinnacle of Hollywood. Like
Yeah.
if you make one of those films and it's successful,
Yeah.
that's like very, impressive. And so I think he just wasn't necessarily he was using it as a jumping off point.
Yeah.
So I there were a few moments where I was a bit like, maybe the marketing has been a bit wrong, like calling it the Odyssey when it does include a lot of stuff, but it misses also a lot.
Yeah.
And Odysseus is not really the Odysseus, but again, as I've said, like makes total sense. He is making a Hollywood like epic hero,
Mm-hmm.
and we need him to be a family man and honorable because that's part of like the genre. Like that's a huge aspect. But it just and calling it based on the Odyssey,
Yeah.
which I thought at least with Troy they used inspired by
Yeah.
Homer's Iliad.
Yeah, and they didn't call it the Iliad.
Yeah, and also what was it, the way he would cite Emily Wilson,
Yeah, a lot.
which, and talk about the opening line, tell me about a complicated man, and obviously her review, people are calling it scathing. I don't think it was scathing. I think to me it sounded like an academic.
Yeah,
Like she was writing like an academic. I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily agree with all her points, but I think that's because she comes at it from a translator perspective, not, and so someone who knows the text
Yeah.
versus like someone who studies film.
Yeah, you
And so
come
I
at
was-
it from the other side, like still as a
Yeah.
classicist, but from the film side, it would be so
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
But it was bizarre that he would keep citing her. So he's having
Yeah.
this kind of setting it up that they are going to engage very heavily with the source material, and they do to an extent, but it is mostly he's interested in exploring fears of like the effects of war on a man,
Mm-hmm.
and Odysseus really isn't the character for that.
No.
That's Aeneas. Do
Yeah.
the Aeneid if you want a man who's clearly traumatized by war, who's a
Yeah.
family man. Like the amount of times Aeneas cries in the Aeneid, like
Yeah.
that man is just crying all the time. He is having an awful time. Like he's not happy. He's guilt-ridden about his wife. He's
It's always
looking after his son and father.
Yeah. No, that really would. I hadn't thought of the Aeneid as, as an alternative, but it really, you're quite right about like the thing that he wanted to explore would have been better served by the Aeneid.
But the Aeneid doesn't have the same cultural weight as
Exactly.
the Odyssey.
Yeah.
And so understand why he did it, but I think he'd have a lot less people getting pissy at him. Like, and I mean, from all angles, if he'd done the Aeneid, 'cause unless you studied classics, you don't really know the Aeneid. It's my favorite. I love it, but
It's interesting. I love this. I didn't plan this at all, but I just was it last night maybe or the night before, time is all blurring together, but I recorded not for my show but with Avon McMaster for her podcast, and she is like a specialist in the Aeneid, but also had felt that Emily Wilson's review was very harsh.
yeah.
I don't know if I should. She was very like friendly about it. It was not in any way. It was just more like to her because she also liked the movie. It felt like a little over the top. I think the criticisms or her review was harsh, and I say that having like for me, I really needed her review because I saw the movie early, which in hindsight I wish I hadn't. But I saw it like a week before most people were seeing it, and right before anyone was allowed to talk about it. And so like there was never a limit on whether I could talk about it, but it meant that like nobody had talked about it by the time I saw it. And I think that I ended up then, kind of sitting in this space where I had felt really troubled by a lot of his decisions. But then as people started to see it, all I kept seeing was all of these people just praising it for just being a good action movie and all this. And like, I think there's nothing wrong with praising it as that. But
Mm.
what I never saw was anyone talking about, I mean, specifically the women, which I think was actually quite an irresponsible decision. Like, it's not just like, oh, another movie that doesn't like women. Like, I just think we need to be taking some of these things more seriously in our current climate. And I was just disappointed to see nobody talking anything about that. And they were just like, it's a good old action movie. Does it get everything right? No, but it's a good, and it's like, that is fine. But when it comes to people in our field, and because these were
Yeah.
primarily men who I generally respect, who I was just seeing so much, and I was like actively trying not to look at it too. So I wasn't clicking into anything deeper because I was like, I'm just trying not to engage, because it really was like weighing on me as
Yeah.
a woman in this field, thinking like, man, does nobody think this is an issue? Like, it was hard, mostly because I'm so entrenched in the Odyssey. I mean, it's been my favorite since I was a child, but on top of that, I've spent the last year and a half like writing my own and reading it like 8 different times, and so it was just, I was like kind of lost. And then I read Emily Wilson's review and felt like, it was like my nervous system could calm down in a way that I
Yeah.
was like, I didn't know I needed this, but I just needed to see that someone else felt like me about it. But it's just interesting. Like, I understand why people take so many different things from it, and different people have different priorities and all this, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it's fascinating to talk about, but so often it gets like really stifled, I think, particularly because of all of the like really unreasonable conservative backlash it got at the beginning, because,
Yeah.
or like before it came out, right? Because then the people who were so upset that it was racially diverse, then they made it so toxic that then
Mm.
if you were upset, that, like, for me, I was upset about the women primarily, but also that there was no, like, obviously Mediterranean people in the cast. And I think that, like, diversity means less if you are intentionally or otherwise excluding the people for whom the story is their historical culture.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see, but then you get lumped in with the same people who think it's bad because there are black people in it. And I'm like, I want the diversity, but I would like some, also maybe one Greek person.
Yeah. I think, because I've been thinking about the whole no Greek actors cast,
Mm-hmm.
and part of me understands the argument, and part of me is not quite sure, because the way the Odyssey, I'm not saying it belongs to any, I don't think these texts belong to a specific culture or country anymore because of ancient colonialism.
Totally.
They had just traveled so far and so wide, and they have been so foundational to multiple countries, cultures, that I don't see it necessarily as being like full of Greeks. And I understand the setting, but it's a Hollywood epic film, so when they do diversity, it's going to reflect American
Totally.
diversity.
Yeah.
So like, I understood. And the thing is, we do have Greek adaptations of the Odyssey already. We have, I think there's a film, there's a TV series, there was an animated TV show I
Oh,
didn't know about,
really?
but I was talking to someone yesterday who's British Greek, and she was like, "Yeah, I remember like fever dreams of watching this animated version of the
Amazing. I
Odyssey
have
and
to find
in
this.
Greek." And I was like, "Okay, so like Greek people have adapted it
Oh,
and done it
totally.
their way."
I just think, for me, and this is also based heavily in my like real love of the Greek people and culture.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you, like, on the surface of
Mm.
the expanse of the story and the way that it has transformed. And I think that if Greece had become a superpower, I would also be like,
Yeah.
no, like that, absolutely. But I think the way that modern Greeks, they're often treated as if they don't deserve to have that as their historical
Oh
culture. And I
yeah,
recognize like
that's
there's so much to
insane.
say. Well, exactly. And there's also something to be said about the fact that, like, if you went by setting this in ancient Greece as it is, and by using those words and things, like, I just think you have I think that it's not a responsibility, but just like, I just think it would have been a more just like human it just seemed to would have been like a nicer idea, even if it was just like one of his sailors was
just
Greek.
one Greek
Like, I
actor.
recognize we're gonna get the Hollywood stars, totally. Like, I'm not
Yeah, it's all about the name.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not pretending that that is not going to be the inevitability, but like the choice instead to have them, Odysseus and his men at one point speaking to the people who, anyone who knows the story well enough will know that the first place that they sack the city is Ismarus. It's in mythical Thrace. And so, you know, it is a city of quote unquote barbarians. And the Odysseus and his men speak to those people and they talk about being Greek, but the people that they're speaking to speak Greek and they don't put subtitles or acknowledge that it's Greek. So to 99% of the audience, they're speaking some foreign language to these people who are calling themselves Greeks. And I think that choice made it even more troubling to me because it felt like an intentional way to say, but these ancient Greeks are not like Greeks today. They're not the same, even though you're still using the word. And it's something different too. Like saying ancient Romans is different than saying ancient Italians, right? But we say ancient Greeks so intentionally, and we use their language and we misuse their letters so they look like something in English. And all of these things to me I just think it would have been more respectful, I think is the word I want to use. I think it would have been respectful to cast a Greek person. And maybe that's just my personal, but it just, I don't know. Again, like if the Greeks were a superpower, if they were like a powerful country, if they were a rich country, if they were like, you know, that would be different. But like they were colonized so badly. It's not like they spent the last 2,000 years colonizing, right? Like it, you know, so it's just, I don't know. I think there are contextual things that it just seemed to me a little rude to like base your entire movie on saying the word Greece like 8,000 times. And then they didn't even do a press thing in Greece. Like it just, and they filmed it there and they, you know, like it would be one thing if they had separated themselves from the Greece of it a little bit more, but to film it there and to, you know, use it like that and then to not do anything just was like, I thought it was disappointing.
No, those are fair points. I see it a bit more now.
Yeah, like I understand, like, you know, it is still Hollywood, but it's just like I think it just would have been nice. It's even different. Yeah, like Italy is a more powerful country than Greece. Like they, you know, there's modern context that I think often gets like ignored because Americans are like Western history is our history, you know? And so to me that's all it's screams of.
Oh, the history side of things.
Oh my god.
I very much do not. And
the
like
age of bronze is coming to an end.
Our age of bronze is collapsing. It's like there was because those were the bits of dialogue I thought were silly.
They were very silly.
I didn't mind Dad and stuff. I had people were getting so mad about that. And I was like, I think that's interesting. It was a bit jarring against some of the then more grandiose dialogue.
Exactly. And that's what Emily Wilson pointed out too, right? Fully, I think. It's like I think you could just pick one though, because a lot of the time they were speaking colloquially. And then a lot of the time they were speaking very not colloquially. Like our age of bronze is collapsing. Like that's very different than Dad, you know. My dad's coming back. You know. It was just sort of more like continuity maybe.
Yeah, I think dialogue was definitely a weaker point. Again, I still really enjoyed the film.
I'm so glad.
It was
one day
I wasn't expecting to.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you're not going to like it.
No, but I think maybe in a year I would hate it less. I would be able to be a little bit more open-minded. like I like Troy gradually... now, what it is.
Yes! Yeah. I genuinely really enjoy Troy. Again, I'm quite
same. Like for all its flaws, but like I enjoy Troy.
It's like I think a lot of it comes down to you don't need to enjoy a film. It does not have to be, you know, a perfect film.
Totally.
It's like when it comes to people picking like what their actual favorite film is, unless you're a film bro who's going to be like, I like Shawshank Redemption or Citizen Kane. It's like, no, that's not your favorite film. That's maybe
real.
Like for me, I'd say like those are films I see. not Citizen Kane, I thought that was boring. But like Shawshank Redemption, I thought that is a great film. This is probably one of the best films I've ever seen. But what's my favorite film?
Yeah.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Like,
hell yeah,
that's
filmed in Toronto.
oh, was it?
Yeah,
Oh, I love
very
that.
much. Yeah, the second one they filmed near my apartment when I was living here at the time.
Oh my god, the hype I felt when that second. I haven't seen the third though. I'm just too
neither.
scared to.
Yeah.
But the second was all right. If you like the first, it was just references to the first film. It was great. But anyway, but that's another example of a film using the letters. But at least that's by a Greek American.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. They're allowed.
See, they can do it. We maybe shouldn't.
Well, that's the thing, though, right? And there are those things.
It just looks a bit silly. I understand why they do it.
I think often when you use it, like for my Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's different too because it's like all about Greek culture today.
Yeah.
But when when English Hollywood use it, because they use it as a way that suggests that it's a dead language, and that's what I find to be yucky. Like they often use it and then people will defend it like it's ancient Greek. It doesn't matter. Like it looks like an S, it's fine. It's like, but this is still a language that people use. Like imagine if a different language used a bunch of Latin characters to spell out something random. Like we would find that if it was the culture, like Hollywood, if it was as big and like monolithic, like that would be bothersome.
Yeah, it's just hard to imagine because Latin alphabet is just in so many.
Well, like totally, exactly. It's changed, and but then that's the other thing too, is like Greek only has the one country using their alphabet. Just like let them have it. I don't know. I'm also like very defensive of the Greek people for good or bad. Like,
yeah, I'm getting that, but honestly, like I think it's nice that you care so much, and like it's clearly an important country to you.
Yeah, so. I mean, I see the connection with this thing that I love, and I also think it comes from being from a place that is so colonizer, right? Like,
yeah,
I come from a place where my quote unquote culture is just stepping on other cultures. Like, and I don't have a family background that it goes knowingly beyond Canada. Like my family is just very generationally colonizer Canadian. Yeah, my dad recently found out, he was like doing ancestry.com stuff and found out that my family has been here in French Canada, which I do think makes it slightly better because the French colonizers were very quickly colonized by the British. But but my family came here in like the 1700s, which is like the earliest you can do without being indigenous. But no, so I think that I also just feel like these cultures that have gotten kind of stepped on in such similar ways to the point where they have been forcibly removed from their modern people, I think is just I think it's unnecessarily removed. Like I think we could continue to like exist in the same realm of classics without like the removal of Greece as much as happens. So I just, I make my money off their culture, so I figure at least I do also care about it. But okay, I'm really curious about the masculinity stuff. I mean, generally,
I need to get back to.
But I'm generally thrilled. I'm so glad that you like it in this way because it's also letting me like have a bit of a better time on like thinking about it in this side.
Because it's not all going to be horrifying.
No. And I will say it was really hard for me watching it because like admittedly, and I think this is the perfect place for me to finally like also say slightly nicer things. Like admittedly, when it started, I was really optimistic. I was like, okay, actually, like I'm kind of getting these vibes. I don't hate the lack of color as much as I thought. Like, no, I'm feeling it. Why are they wearing so many layers? Okay, I can forget about, all the layers and pants. And the thing for me that unfortunately ruined it and made it so that I couldn't really try like enjoy the rest as much as I would have liked to was the treatment of the women that I love so much and that I know exist in one way in Homer, and then to see them, I mean, it was Helen specifically, right? Like if you've listened to me talk, you know that it was seeing that he scarred Helen and made her into a battered woman and made Menelaus scary, like those things that to me were like so unnecessary, like so dangerous in a world where like violence against women is worse than ever. And I think to cast a woman as incredibly skilled as Lupita Nyong'o, but also someone who you knew would like no one could have reasonably thought that she would not get racial abuse by being cast as Helen. Like, I think
Oh
that if
yeah.
somebody pretended that they didn't see that coming, they're lying. And so I think it was irresponsible. Again, I think it was irresponsible to cast her and then to desecrate her character to that degree. Like, was just like so disappointing to me that I was like, oh my God. And so it just made it hard for me to see beyond that. But like, I do objectively want to see beyond those things. I want to see the rest of it. So that's just my workaround of saying, like, I'm very glad that you liked it, and I'm glad to talk about it in this more positive way.
I mean, yeah, it feels weird now talking positive after like a very good point like that, which
No,
was
I know. And but I think the thing is that I think all the points need to be made, which is why I'm glad to have the positive side too, because like, yeah, that's valid. That part is valid, but also like a fair acknowledgement of the movie will not just focus on that. And I am curious too, like the masculinity stuff again. Like I asked you and then I derailed you.
Oh, I derailed myself as well.
It's so Hollywood, and then what is masculinity to Hollywood, and what is masculinity in the ancient world, and also like all of it is a construct that's meant to hurt men as well as hurting women.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of Telemachus? Maybe we'll start light.
Telemachus, I actually had so few thoughts on him. I thought he was a bland character. I was not invested in.
Fair.
Like I enjoyed all the. I liked the Penelope scenes and Odysseus scenes. The Telemachus stuff, I was a bit like, oh. But
honestly, though, that's kind of Telemachus.
Yeah, he's just a bit bland.
Yeah.
But a couple things I did know was one of the interesting things is that very early on in the film, so soon after Telemachus is introduced, I think he's trying to go against the suitors in his first appearance. And then we cut to, and I called it obligatory fighting training to establish masculinity. Like, you have this scene of him practicing and, being trained in and Eumaeus is there, being like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, even though I'm blind. And I'm like, okay, so now you have this really like wise old guy as well. It was like a lot of tropes.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was very interesting to have that fighting training scene, because that's not, at least, with Telemachus.
Certainly, yeah, not, and certainly not with Eumaeus. And we don't have, it's always been interesting to me that we don't have an interaction with Telemachus and Eumaeus until Odysseus is back. Because when we do, like, we get the sense that they're very close. Like, he basically calls him dad.
Yeah.
But so it was, I have to say, I liked generally what they did with Eumaeus' character. I do think it was, again, irresponsible to just pretend these people weren't enslaved.
Servant, they love that word, don't
they? Oh my God. Like,
although with
servant who can't leave.
But with Mia Goth's character, they did kind of acknowledge it when like Penelope's like, oh my God, what? She's like sharing knowledge. It's like, well, she's going to be looking for a way out and a way up. And Antinous was like, did seem to make sense as like, who out of him or Penelope, if you're an enslaved, but you'd go with him, I reckon. Because you see the tides kind of shifting.
Absolutely, yeah. I got towards the end there, honestly, I think I was so kind of caught up in my sadness over some of the women that I really wasn't even able to see the forest for the trees at that point. So I'm also glad to be reminded of
like there was some. They did I think with women they did try and include a few moments to kind of allude to the dangers of, a society that's built on slavery, but also a patriarchal society like that of the film. So like Cersei seemed like their kind of nod at being like, men are dangerous, like women are often like can be victims of rape. And I found her characterization interesting, but it's like, again, because she was not like an object of desire for Odysseus, she was turned, I think Emily Wilson called it like a Baba Yaga figure, and I was like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But
they turned her into Roman witches.
Yes, but I like I liked the physicality of it. I
Yes.
thought that was.
No, so did I.
I was watching that pig.
It was
Oh,
Ovidian. That was
that was
yeah.
hard to watch, and all practical effects. So, like, again, some great filmmaking. But I liked. So yeah, this is gonna have spoilers, obviously, for anyone
Yeah.
watching.
Oh yeah.
When she turns them back to men, and she is saying, like, was it go back to your disguises, like take on your disguises? And I was like, I really liked that, 'cause she's like, I've just revealed them for what these men were. And I thought
Yeah.
that was. I thought it was interesting to have that kind of message of, like, men are like, can be really dangerous to women, and, like, it for me it felt like she was very reasonable to be like, oh, these men have showed up. I know they're saying they're not going to do anything. I don't know them. They could do.
Yeah. Yeah. Cersei is one that I am like, I find even harder to talk about, I guess, because I agree with you completely. Like I think that what they tried to do with Cersei is interesting, and I think that if I didn't know the Homeric Cersei as well as I
Yeah.
do, if I didn't know those scenes as well as I do, and again, like I'm coming at this from having not just read it multiple times in the last year, but especially with those scenes, like I read them into a microphone like a week ago. Like it was very recent, very
Yeah.
fresh in my mind. And so those are heavily impacting it. And also, honestly, my current state of like rage at the constant violence against women that I'm seeing in the news constantly. Like I also think, and I've been trying to figure out ways of like, I don't know, I want to do something on it in a bigger sense. But like especially with the US, and I mean they're just like raping women in their concentration camps and getting them pregnant, and that is barely on the news. And it's just this stuff, like we are in this time when I think it's so particularly scary that I then overthink their choices, because I think on the surface the Cersei character, and a lot of people have defended her to me, I think on the surface she can seem empowering because of everything you just said, right? There is this acknowledgement that men are dangerous, that you know their true form is pigs, these different things, like, and those are good. I think that to a modern viewer without the background, that was a good character and an attempt at some form of like empowering to women. But I think that when you compare her to the Cersei that Homer gives us, you end up kind of realizing the ways that this Cersei is like Nolan Cersei is intentionally much more palatable to men, because the Cersei in Homer uses their lust against them, right? Like the
Yeah.
Cersei in Homer has these men show up outside her house. They see her inside. They say she's pretty. They call her to come out. Like, and that's when the transformation happens. So the Cersei in Homer to me is a woman who knows what men want from her and is more than happy to use that to keep herself safe. Like she uses her sexuality to keep herself safe. She uses men's sexualization of her rather to keep herself safe through this transformation, right? Whereas in Nolan, much like, you know, all the other things he has Odysseus doing that make it just like a little bit less his fault, you know, again, like the men go out in search, he tries to keep them back, which is hilarious because they literally lose lots and they cry and he forces them to go find Cersei in the book. Like
Oh dear.
but like, and so it just sort of, it takes away that agency from Odysseus for one, but it also takes away the initiating pig behavior that is the men. The men in Homer are pigs because they want a woman's body for just the body, but the men in Nolan are pigs because they're hungry. And those are two very different types of commentary on women's relationships with strange men, right? Like this Nolan Cersei is Baba Yaga. She's scary, she's powerful, she's, you know, but as compared to a woman who intentionally uses the fact that men cannot control their lust around women and that is meant to be our problem, she turns
Yeah.
that on its head in a way that I love and had never even really conceptualized like that until I saw the alternative. And then I went, oh, by removing all the sexual nature, like you've removed this aspect of her power that I now see was incredibly important.
Okay, yeah.
And again, that's all my preference, but like it's interesting to me to think about it that way because I do think that on the surface she was a good like adaptation. She was very different from
Yeah.
Homeric Circe, and there's obviously nothing wrong with that. But in terms of the choices that they made, I just think all of it just made it everything just a little bit more palatable to men, and just a little bit less about men's inability to control themselves.
I mean, to be fair, she does. I have a line I wrote down where she goes, they rape, they pillage, they eat, they are pigs.
Yes.
So, like, she is talking about, like, in the scene with the conversation, she is being like, they would have done this to me.
Yes.
Like, it would have happened. It's just, it's not, obviously, as overt. I don't know if overt's all the right word, but it's not like in Homer's.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I know. It's all about, I mean, it's all about perspective too, right? And like I said, like I'm coming at this from a place where I now also have spent way too much time just seeing deeper levels of like the patriarchal oppression than I have in recent years. The timing is just, the timing.
yeah, it is a time we live in.
Remember when I asked about masculinity and then talked about Circe?
This conversation it's like we are bouncing all over.
Perfect. This is called ADHD.
Yeah.
And such is life. But yeah, the sort of like nuclear family bit too you brought up earlier, which obviously ties so much into the masculinity that they were trying to convey. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, I'm generally interested in all of it. I found the scene where like he was trying to really amp up the romance and the family dynamics, where like it was the flashback where Odysseus and Penelope are like all snuggly and the
in bed
kid
with
is
the warm lighting and...
yeah, that was very interesting to me in a way that I think maybe was convincing to a regular audience.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I have much more to say other than the fact, like, the whole idea of this nuclear family and this man who is so in love with his wife is just such a key component, like convention within Hollywood epic cinema, especially ancient world films. And it's just a whole way of marking him as the protagonist of the film. He's this moral figure in comparison with then the suitors, I would say, probably the villain, most obvious villains, and Antinous.
He was good. He was good.
He was great, and he was really interesting. I've seen a lot of criticism about his costuming and people being like, why is he in armor? Why is he in these furs? And I'm like, that's another convention. They're doing another thing from ancient epic cinema that goes back to sort of like Spartacus. You always have the morally corrupt villain in multiple layers of clothing. So Spartacus, and you'll usually have the protagonist is usually somewhat naked or at least like more exposed. So Spartacus in the 1960 film versus Crassus, who is a Roman senator, and he is obviously wearing a lot of, robe and toga, and he's draped in fabric versus, bare-chested Spartacus. You get it in Gladiator is a really key one. The final sort of, Commodus is always in, these furs and
all
extra
the regalia
layers.
and
yeah, and when he's wearing, in the final scene, the duel with Maximus, where Maximus is again, he's just in his armor, arms are out, like you can see his body and his muscle, and this kind of like true, real, pure, honest masculinity through his body. Like the body is such a key component of expressing masculinity in these films, and so by covering it, it's a sign of weakness, and it shows like engagement in like luxury, and that's associated with like moral corruptness. And so that's what is happening with Antinous. I mean, Troy, it happens again. Brad Pitt versus Agamemnon. Brian Cox is completely covered in loads of layers versus Brad Pitt, you know, again, arms out, short skirt. um,
Yeah.
and so
I've
that's like,
never noticed this. I'm obsessed.
yeah, so when I'm seeing people criticize, I'm like, but
No, yeah.
that's what this film I think does really well, is visual references and intertexts. It is
Yeah.
all about that. And so it's why for me, like, I think it's a really successful ancient like Hollywood epic film. Because it does all these aspects, but I think in a way that for definitely uh an audience not super familiar
Yeah.
with the ancient texts, but all some who have like some knowledge also will enjoy. I think he uses them in an effective way that's enjoy. Because I tried last night. I thought, oh, before the podcast, I'll try watch The Return.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
I
the
still
Ralph.
haven't seen that. Yeah.
Oh god, I think I got like 20 minutes in. It was bad. It was bad. I was like, this is not an enjoyable film. The
Oh.
acting was bad. Just filming was, I was just like, this is not great.
It's
So
so
I didn't.
disappointing because I think the casting, like just I only know, you know, the two main cast, but they
Yeah.
just seemed so much better to me than Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway,
Yeah.
but
But
clearly
from what
not
I'm
in.
gathering from that film, it plays into a very similar sort of idea of the male body as a sign of like moral superiority
Mhm.
and heroism. So Ralph Fiennes in that film is very naked for a lot of the film. Like, first time you
Yeah.
see him, he's naked. Him, I think when they do the scene with the bow at the very end, he is almost
I
naked.
mean, that's true to the text because when Odysseus
Yeah,
reveals himself, he strips everything off and he's like explicitly naked
naked.
while he kills everybody, and I do love that.
I think it's a pretty cool bit.
Yeah.
And but it also happens to then work with this Hollywood convention.
Yeah.
Um, the male body is such like a crucial ground on which masculinity is performed and embodied.
Yeah.
That's like, and so it's why people will then look at Brad Pitt versus Elliot Page and they're like, well, Brad Pitt's the right option, obviously, because he fits in with the conventions and the expectations of what the male body should look like in these films and
Yeah.
Hollywood in general, really. So yeah, I think that was everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it with the like the clothing and the costuming.
Yeah, you mentioned like a lot of just different like visual references and stuff, or I mean,
Yes.
or just like the other films, or I don't know. You mentioned something earlier, and I'm just curious what you flagged.
I think it was costuming, references to artwork,
Oh right, yeah,
like the
the
eating of
Cyclops, yeah,
um I'm trying to remember. It's just a lot of, I think, shot like visually, the shots like being at sea, etc.,
yeah,
just are evocative of previous adaptions.
and very Homeric.
Very Homeric,
Yeah,
and I think it was just a lot about the whole spectacle. The film was
Mhm.
visually like a lot, and
Yeah.
I didn't see an IMAX,
I was gonna ask. Yeah, no, neither did I.
which I hate that. I hate that he did it all in IMAX. I think it's pretentious.
Absolutely, it is. And also, like I saw,
Elitist to an
and
extent,
no,
because a
a
lot of people
thousand
can't afford
percent.
it or access it.
No, it's so
That
elitist.
made me mad. That's
Yeah.
something I'm like genuinely not
Well,
happy
that's the thing.
about.
I've thought about it because, like, I know I wouldn't like it again, but I would like to see it again from a perspective of knowing what I'm getting into, so that I can be a bit more open minded. I would, but I'm not spending $30 on it. Like,
Oh
the
God,
first time
no.
I got to see it for free, which was great, but like, I'm not. And we saw, well, what I found out too, because I saw it in 70 millimeter, but not IMAX 70 millimeter, and
Mm.
I mean, I don't understand the differences except that IMAX is always very big. That I get.
It's that more square
But
like, so you're missing the
exactly.
top and
Well, that's what I was
bottom.
gonna say. Yeah, is that I learned sort of after I saw people comparing them, and yeah, if you don't see it in IMAX, you're seeing like half of the frames,
Yeah.
and that is so stupid. Like that should not. We should not. That is so elitist. Like on its face, that
Yeah.
like if you're poor, you see less movie. Like
Or
come
like or the
on.
waiting. I was like, I'm not waiting around. I was like, I want to go on this podcast and finally talk about the film to live. Like, we've been trying to organize something for so long. I was like, I'm gonna go see it. So I
Well,
just
thank
saw it
you
at my
for doing
local
that.
cinema. Oh, it's fun. I had a great time. It was one of those like fancy cinemas, you know, where they bring the
Ooh.
food to your.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah. No, good.
But I feel like even that wouldn't have made it great for you.
No.
But
No, and it was such an odd setting for me too, because I was going as like, I mean, I introduced it to the theater.
why did they? Because you work on the.
Yeah. So that's like there was just so many things at play here. So like yeah, I have written the Odyssey for kids this year. The timing was very intentionally with the movie. So I was simultaneously promoting my book, which is also thankfully published by a big enough publisher that it's everywhere. And so like I've just kind of been the Odyssey person. And I think locally in Toronto, I was like the
Yeah.
Odyssey, quote unquote, like not an influencer, but close enough that the one that they thought of. And despite the fact that I've been publicly incredibly pessimistic about this movie since the second it was announced, I got reached out to by the Canadian marketing people, and then after I had already worked with them to like we did a giveaway for tickets, and then I introduced the movie to the Toronto pre-screening. It was like
Love
there was only
that.
one Toronto pre-screening too at this theater, and I was just like in the front with a microphone being like hi, and then afterwards was like standing outside being like I hated it. But yeah, it was a very odd thing to be like, well, I get it, I'm your Odyssey person, so I guess here it
Okay.
is.
You still don't have to pay.
But yeah, but it made it such a weird thing too, because then I was like up at the front, and then I just had to like rush to my seat, and it was playing, and so and then it was just it was just a very odd way to experience it. Glad it was free, but like
Yeah, definitely sounds interesting.
yeah.
But what was I saying? Oh, yeah, cinematic. I think
Yeah.
as a cinema experience, it was amazing.
Yeah, agreed.
I and I've had a few people ask, should I see the film? And I said yes, but genuinely only I think you need to see it in the cinema
Yeah. Yeah, I
because
can't imagine how much like it's not going to have the same vibe on a small
it
screen.
it was visually overwhelming at
Yeah.
times. Like again, I keep saying spectacle, but that is what it was. It was about spectacle, and he
Yeah.
was. And a huge component actually was the soundtrack as well, like
Yeah.
Ludwig Göransson. Oh my god, like the the siege of Troy scene. I
Yeah.
was like stressed as the music kept like increasing in
Ugh.
tempo. Like I
Ludwig
was having
Göransson's good. Like
that man. Oh my
yeah.
god, the
Did you know that
talent.
he got like this is niche me being a dork, but like I'm 99% sure he got his start doing the sound for the show Community.
Wait, no, I think I
Yeah,
did
because
know
he
that.
met Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, and then they started working together and became like best music pals. And then he went on
Yeah,
to become like does the music for like all of this epic shit. And I
I
just
mean,
love it
he
because
did
I
like
watched.
Black Panther, didn't
Yeah,
he? Like,
I think so. He does amazing stuff, and I know. Yeah, he works really closely with Childish Gambino.
yeah,
But I've just this is as somebody who watched Community like what back at the beginning, it's been very fun to be like, "Ooh, look at all these little connections."
I
This
love
very
God, I
ridiculous
love that
show,
show.
right? Good, thank you.
I mean, obviously it
Yeah,
goes down in quality
yeah,
towards the end, but pretty much everything does. But yeah, the music was
yes.
again
Oh,
it
yeah,
absolutely perfect for a film like that, an epic. But also, I loved like the audio motif of like the thrumming
yeah.
bow and that becoming like so tied to Odysseus. And I thought that was just very clever.
The just speaking of the music, the one thing I do kind of wish they'd done is
The
the
sirens?
well, the sirens were a problem. The sirens The sirens were a problem. The sirens were just naked ladies on a rock.
Yeah, they're like birds with faces,
Yeah,
basically.
they're
Like,
supposed to be birds, but these were just like naked ladies on a rock. So that's a whole other thing. But no, the poet, I wanted more from the bard. I didn't know it was.
Travis Scott.
Thank you. I was about to have the wrong name. I didn't know. And so clearly he could have sung like I liked the initial idea of the
Yeah.
like boom boom boom, but when then it never turned into a song, it was an odd choice to
Or
have a
more
musician.
rap, I think. It was
It was very
more like he was
spoken
speaking rather
wordy.
than rapping.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was very spoken word. It wasn't a song. like rap or otherwise. Like that, I mean, rap is a great format for
Oh
an
yeah.
epic poem. So it was just, yeah, it was more of just like boom, 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 and then he'd say things. It was, I liked what it began to evoke, but then it just sort of it just didn't do enough, I think, for the poet of it all. But it
No,
was a good
agreed.
idea, just like cut off too early, because like if you're gonna have a singer do this, let him sing.
Let him perform,
Let him
please.
do the thing that he's there for. If you're gonna have a cameo, why is he not doing it? Um well, okay, from a just purely reception, I guess this is not what you would specialize in, but I'm curious about your thoughts. Like, what did you think about the removal of the nobody scene?
I disagreed with Nolan's in interviews when he said because it's wordplay and it's in a different language you couldn't do it, and I was like, well, I mean, I
How?
think you, because the words sound similar in Greek, and I was like, but it still works outside. I think you just don't
Yeah.
know it's wordplay. You just think it's a trick, which is clever.
Right.
So he was sort of saying, oh, it just doesn't work in English, and I'm like, but it does.
Everyone knows it works in English, though. Like, everyone knows it as the nobody or the no one scene, so clearly it does work in English. Otherwise,
Yeah.
nobody would know it as the nobody scene. What do you mean it doesn't work in English?
So I seen that and I thought that doesn't quite work. But I did get, again, it's one of those things. I'm like, I would have loved to have seen that, but to do that would have had to be quite a large episode and to have had
Yeah.
more of the Cyclops.
And it would have
And I
made Odysseus look bad. And they were clearly not that
which they
interested in
did
making
not.
him look bad.
No, they need this to be like a monstrous figure who afterwards they suddenly go, oh, hang on, wait, he can talk? Like, oh my god, like this is like a sentient, like he's
Mhm.
on our level. What? Which I guess kind of plays into the idea of like Nolan's Odysseus is like harmful by accident. Like he doesn't realize the
Mhm.
full impact of his like the consequences of his actions. Like the sea people thing, where it's kind of like reveal, oh, but it was them, and you're
Mhm.
like, which I thought I got from the moment they mentioned sea people, and it's like we thought you were the sea people. That's why we ran away when you came to sack and pillage our village. And I'm like, well, yeah, like you are like yes. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
are they not the sea people in this? Because like that's what they're doing. So it's all like he does harmful things and afterwards realizes the consequences of his actions. Like the siege of Troy is like he came up with the horse. And then
And
he's horrified during the siege. And it's like,
yeah.
well, what did you think was going to happen, mate? Like,
Yeah. That was the thing. A lot of people are, I think, defending it because I don't know. It's so American, I think, is the best way to start with
oh,
what
yeah.
I'm trying to explain. Is it's just so American because it is trying to make a commentary that war is bad,
Mm,
but it's doing it in the most absurdly American way possible by centering the veterans and not the
mm.
victims,
Oh, yeah.
and centering the like general who feels a little bit of guilt after everyone dies rather than the everyone that dies, right? And it's
Mm,
just, but then a lot of people came out of that being like, oh great, yeah, it was like a real anti war sentiment. I'm like, I don't think that's true. What it was saying that war hurts Americans. Those wars, when Americans go over and then they kill millions of brown people, it
yeah.
hurts Americans. And isn't that sad? Like, that to me is what the message kind of is, if you break it down. Like, because there was zero focus on the people harmed
Mm,
other than Odysseus. There was no focus. I mean, and even in the ways, that he did, he was clearly trying to use women to convey the harm of war, but at the same time did it without any empathy towards those women. It was just weird. Like, It just, yeah, just this very American masculine way of saying, like, sometimes we make mistakes. Maybe we shouldn't have killed all those brown people, but it's too late now. We feel bad about it. Like that. And I just don't think that they deserve any props for that.
I mean, the thing is, this is a bit of a trend in Christopher Nolan films. Not necessarily the war is bad, but like a male character who has done wrong and is now racked by guilt and has to kind of learn to live with his, like Oppenheimer is absolutely
right.
about
I didn't
that.
see that one, but yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, it's, you know, man creates a nuclear weapon and realizes, oh no, it was bad. People die. Like, I thought I liked that a lot less than I liked the Odyssey.
Yeah, fair.
That was, but I did Barbenheimer, and that was maybe
you?
a mistake. Yeah. We did Oppenheimer first and then Barbie, and that was the wrong way to do it because I just felt numb throughout Barbie.
Oh yeah, fair. See, I happily just did the Barbie.
No, my friend and I got really into it. We dressed up in everything. She was
that's
Barbie,
cute.
I was Oppenheimer.
Oh my god, that's delightful though. That is worth it alone.
Yeah, and then her husband came along. He was just dressed normally, so we were like, oh, you just can.
Perfect. See, and this is, I mean, this is just such a good reminder of like, I recognize that I am as bothered as I am because this is the Odyssey. Like, I'm not out here pretending, you know?
Yeah,
and also because I'm a misandrist, but
like, at least you own it. Like,
no, yeah. At this point, I mean, until men show me that they are worth being worth trusting, I don't know.
But no, because for me, I am much more familiar with the Iliad and sort of any reception of Achilles is like like the ones I have like memorized. So I did have to go back to the Odyssey when we thought it was going to be about Elliot Page's Achilles and potentially receptions of Achilles in the underworld. So I was like going back through and I was just like,
and you're like, oh, he's got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he comes back again in the end. You know, when the suitors are taken down to the underworld, like Agamemnon and is chatting with Achilles. So, like, yeah, but in terms of like the Odyssey, I think the last time I read it would have been like first or second year of uni.
Oh, so fair. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read the Iliad, so it would be similarly like, I mean, it won't be, because I literally just started reading Emily Wilson's translation yesterday, and I need to get through it because of reasons that are not unrelated to me having published the Odyssey this year. Gee, I wonder. But also, yeah.
Girl, that's exciting.
Right? So cool. It's very exciting. But no, the thing is, and again, like I know the Odyssey like the back of my hand right now. Like I generally know the Odyssey well, but right now I know it too well. And I did know that like going in. But I also, it's so hard just, I don't know, I think in a different world I wouldn't have seen it. And then I just would have happily not talked about it. But here we are. And people want me to, they ask my opinion, and then still sometimes I get people annoyed that I gave it. So who knows? But here we are.
Unless you give exactly what people want, sometimes people will be angry. That's something I learned from my stint on social media before I went viral. That was...
Oh, did you go? Oh, no.
Yeah, it was just before our last podcast episode.
Oh, you must have told me. Remind me.
What you shared, it was I shared a meme about Achilles, like what we thought his weakness was heel, what it really was twinks, and it was a picture of a twunk. And I knew it as a twunk, and it went viral, and people got mad, and I remember just being like, well, people telling me, like, trying to explain ancient, like, understandings of gender and sexuality, and I was like, great news, next week I have a podcast episode coming out. I know a lot about Achilles and Patroclus, like, I know this, like, it was really good timing, but I found it so interesting to see, like, social media does not allow for nuance, and also, like, if you do something slightly that people don't agree with, like say something even just slightly different from what they like, you are going to get jumped on.
Yeah,
and it's utterly
worse
insane
now than it was before our last chat. Oh my god. Like I'm like trying to step away from social media as much as possible. I posted a couple of things like related to the movie, and that was a mistake, and I've had to turn comments off on both.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it's just, I mean, people are wild. I mean, but also, like, I think they just want to argue on anything, so it's like they'll find a post and then invent or bring in a separate argument. Like I about how I, felt strongly that there should have been Greek cast.
Mm.
And somebody ended up getting into it with me being like, oh no, one person they just commented like, great, now say this about Troy. And I was like, I mean, yeah, if it was 20 years ago, I would. But it's not 20 years ago. So what exactly is the point in me commenting on a 20-plus-year-old movie? Like, what do you mean?
No,
And it just turned into like the guy was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Well, I wasn't really talking to you." I'm like, "Well, you're talking on my post. So what do you mean exactly?" Like, people were just so ready. Like, do this about Troy. The movie came out in 2004. What do you mean?
Liv, why are you not commenting about every single reception of the ancient world? Like, what are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm getting too old for social media. And like, I know it's objectively not true, but my nervous system is cannot take it. It's just so wacky. But it's, yeah.
Wacky but fascinating from like just if you're not the one experiencing,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
so interesting to see how people use it to spread ideas.
That's what makes it so hard, because I also find it fucking fascinating, but I
Yeah.
also sometimes have to exist within it. And it's that sort of clash that is the worst.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, generally,
Yeah, so this is such an interesting conversation because we are talking about so many different
yeah.
things. I'm like,
Well, I
what the
think that
hell
was,
are you going to
I
what
mean,
are
I'm
you
going
going
to
to
just call it
call this?
reception in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, basically. Something slightly quippier than that. But I think that ends up really good. I mean, for one, I haven't had a conversation about the movie at all yet. I've just posted a couple of my rambling thoughts, which are not the most productive. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to have like a more open and sort of general conversation about the movie. This is perfect. But I'm also just fascinated in your insights as somebody who does come at it from the movie side, whereas like, I'm not a movie buff generally, and I don't think of those kinds of things. And so it's really interesting to hear the ways that you like those connections you made. I'm really fascinated by the like layers of clothing bit, because I did also find it kind of distracting at
Mm.
where all of his furs and his layers, but knowing that, I'm like, oh, I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to just sort of remember like the other things that I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like visual intertext. I can go back to
Ooh,
another one
please.
I remember. So Penelope gives Odysseus that brooch in the
Yeah.
shape of a woman, and to remember her by and stuff. And that's like a massive thing in kind of any war film, where
Mm.
there's a love interest, or ancient world ones, that sort of love motif, like the object that shows like kind of a reminder of what they're fighting for. And
Yeah.
it's in all sorts of films. I'm just remembering in Troy they do it a bit where um, Achilles gives her, was it? He has this necklace of Patroclus's.
Right. His
Um,
cousin.
yeah, his little baby cousin.
Actually, sorry, just to derail very slightly again, but when you said earlier about the Telemachus scene with Eumaeus, how they
I
were.
was just thinking
Thank you, because
about that.
when you said it, where it was like that scene of them learning, my brain immediately thought of the scene in Troy, where it was so
Yeah,
similarly like kind of unnecessary, meant to just sort of imply their relationship. But there's that scene in Troy where Achilles is teaching Patroclus, and you're like, oh, good
yeah,
cousin, you're so much younger, all that.
and that and that's kind of what's happening with Telemachus. It's like because it's a
Yeah.
training session. It's
Yeah.
emphasizing his youth, and like he is performing masculinity correctly, but he's not quite mastered it yet.
Yeah.
Versus Odysseus, who is this expert, huntsman, expert with a bow, which is really interesting how they work with that, because by ancient standards and in a lot of films, bows are kind of a cowardly weapon.
Mm.
So the way they manage to make it in the film, because it's so integral to Odysseus,
Yeah.
to make it seem very honorable way of fighting, where he'll like does the thrum to warn
Yeah.
the animals
Right.
that he's near, but I'm giving them a chance. But he'll do that like and you're just like, Odysseus, don't, like, he does it I think with Polyphemus, and I'm like, don't do that, that's stupid, like you're so honorable and stupid Like, you're not this clever, deceitful man. But it's like, yeah, it's just very different ways of performing masculinity, like through your like military prowess and your ability as
Yeah.
a fighter.
I hadn't thought about that before because yeah, you're right. Like the bow is so integral to Odysseus's, particularly the reveal at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean to us, I think it makes sense because it is just this weapon of hunting primarily, and that is where it is
Mm.
coming from when it comes to Odysseus. But then in a Hollywood movie, you have to make it also the weapon part, right? Whereas
Yeah.
like, yeah, Odysseus is probably not using his bow much in war. He's using it to hunt. It's a more practical device because and I hadn't made that but the cowardly bit is so on point because Paris uses the bow.
Yes.
He's the coward because
He's
he uses the
he's
bow.
Eastern, he's effeminate, he's a
Yeah.
coward, the only way he kills Achilles is with an arrow in those versions, and that's again with the help of a god. Like,
Yeah.
the bow is not a particularly respected weapon by sort of the ancient epic standards.
Yeah.
They want like Ajax and Achilles who are getting right in the thick of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Agamemnon. Curious at your thoughts. The
The
Batman villain.
aura. It was insane. I was really I I thought he looked really cool. I know
Yeah.
it was
It was
almost
weird, but
ridiculous.
he did look cool.
I thought it was the spine. Oh,
Yeah.
and I thought he looked amazing, really cool. I liked the character. I just thought it was very odd to make Agamemnon like this versus like any reception of him. He's not presented positively. He's not
Yeah.
particularly positively depicted in the Iliad or any
Do you think
ancient
he was
text.
positive in this? Because I kind of got the sense they were suggesting that like because he was like Mr. Warmonger, he should be the one to blame. But again, by the end, I feel like I had kind of blacked out, so I don't trust my
I
interpretation.
mean, maybe positive's the wrong way, but you definitely feel like a respect towards him.
Yes.
And so I think you're not looking down at him as this like terrible leader,
No, yes, true. Yeah, yeah.
petty, greedy, like in Troy, where it's like, he wants Briseis and all that, and like the Iliad.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think it mentions Cassandra. I can't remember if it
No.
mentioned Cassandra in the flashback. So that's again
No.
what kind
Well,
of making him a bit more palatable. Like, at least, he's going home. Yes, he killed his daughter,
yeah.
but that's like almost brushed over. Like, there doesn't seem to be any dwelling over the horror
No.
of that. And he comes back and it's like he's betrayed by his wife, which I thought was a really bizarre. Gonna be honest, I did not like casting Lupita Nyong'o as both Helen and
Ooh, okay.
Clytemnestra. I didn't think that made any sense, because I know the film was trying to get at the idea that it was for trade, like she was an excuse, which is
Yeah.
quite a common interpretation. They did that in Troy. Menelaus wants to get her back, but he's like in the Odyssey, he's an abusive, bad husband,
Yeah.
which is that's really an invention of Troy that Nolan's continuing.
Yeah.
But Agamemnon in Troy is just, he's like, this is the perfect excuse to go after Troy and like,
Yeah.
Get all this wealth. And I think the film was like hinting at that, but it also just kind of, it still doesn't make any sense why, when you think about like Helen, the whole, like all the suitors she had, why would they all have been clamoring for Helen if Clytemnestra is absolutely identical? Like, is
That
it
is
because
such a good
Helen?
point.
Is it because Helen had Sparta, but like could Clytemnestra not have had Sparta? It didn't really. So for me, I was like, just practically, I was like, I just don't quite get it. Like,
Yeah.
but at least it gave us more Lupita Nyong'o, so
Yeah.
which
No,
is not
that's
a bad
so
thing.
true. I hadn't thought of that because, like, yeah, the whole.
So like, there were definitely like, it's the
Yeah.
practicalities like that, the giant's armor. Like, why are they already wearing armor?
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't
No.
have just been chilling wearing armor.
The other thing I think that, just speaking of like logic too, I feel like I'm trying to think of how they tried to explain the fact that there's no king of Ithaca, because I feel like they did kind of suggest, basically I'm getting at, they're in Homer, there is no like real clear explanation why there's no king and why like Penelope maintains
Oh yeah.
control, right? And I think of that because I've talked to I forget who, sadly, but I've talked to somebody who suggested that that specifically because it's true of Helen, that Helen possesses the kingdom of Sparta, right? Like
Yeah.
that kingdom passed through Helen, not through a man. That there's kind of a speculation that maybe that's the situation with Ithaca too.
Okay.
That like she's not allowed to do it on her own, but also like Telemachus is not inherently king, because especially with how they present it in Nolan's movie, because when they show the flashback, the like lovey-dovey bedroom scene where they kind of seem to have sex right in front of their kid, almost, that does kind of get
Yeah.
suggested there because the kid's right there and then they seem to kind of bone. But details. My point really is that Telemachus there looked like a 2 or 3 year old, which is then makes him inherently older. Like that would make him like 23. Why would a 23-year-old not be king? And so I forget how they did it in the movie, but I seem to remember them giving some kind of excuse for like what it is that takes it away from the fact that it could be tied to Penelope.
Yeah.
Like the reason is that she has to pick a king, or she has to pick, a husband. And it's just interesting, but without me remembering how they did it, this is not a particularly helpful point.
It is interesting though, but yeah, there's like moments where the logic doesn't quite work. Practically, I just don't understand some choices.
Yeah.
But again,
The
when
horse
you're
stuff too, like physically, how did they make that horse? Why does it look plastic?
it's way too nicely made.
Yeah. Nothing about it looked
It's impractical.
wooden.
No, the horse, I know it must have been because he wanted that shot of it coming out the water.
Yeah.
Which, yes, is a very visually cool shot.
Yeah.
So I will say, as much as I praised the visuality of the film and the spectacle of it, I do think at times Nolan he over prioritized that over what actually, like, practicality and logic. But at the same time, for me, I thought it at the time, but I still was able to enjoy the film.
Yeah.
It was like I was able to like compartmentalize, and I think a lot of people have just been like, yeah, okay, that doesn't make sense, but
Yeah, I mean, the horse to me was very like I'm not particularly like latched onto that from the myth. I mean, mostly what I'm interested in is the modern obsession with the horse as compared to the ancient, which is that it was not a huge deal to them. Like, but in the modern world, we are fucking obsessed with the horse.
it is. It's so. I'd say visually significant. I keep using the word visual and talking about visuals, but I think it has become so associated with the Trojan War and that mythology.
Oh yeah,
and it's come to kind of symbolize it.
Yeah, in this way that is fairly removed from
the
actual
ancients,
Homeric text, and just in a way that, like, I'm not complaining about that. I find it interesting. I mean, even in my book, the editors they really wanted the horse in there. They really did. And so because it is mentioned in a story within the story, I got it in there, and I have a whole spread where we talk about the horse, and then I say very explicitly in a top corner, because I have all these little boxes that I got to convey like facts and different nerdy shit. And one of them, it just says like not the whole story, and then I talk about how the horse is not actually in Homer and how it's all, it primarily comes later. Yeah, so I was like, because the kids can learn both. We can see the horse because everyone wants to see the horse, and then they can simultaneously learn that the horse is not really in Homer all that much, and definitely not in the Iliad.
Yeah.
But I mean, those kind of visuals are generally just interesting to me. I was curious if you have thoughts on the masculinity of the choice to, well, especially because of how earlier we were talking about Paris and how he is, Eastern and effeminate.
Yeah.
You might know where I'm going. Everyone's wearing pants. And I mean, obviously, like, yes, there's not a huge point in arguing the anachronism of pants. But from like a nerdy classicist perspective, pants are, of course, very Eastern, very effeminate. and considered like a big no-no for the Greeks. And I understand just wanting
Yeah.
to put them in it, but I'm just curious if you have thoughts, because like obviously in Troy, they very easily got away with portraying their Hollywood version of masculinity without putting them in pants. And so I was just curious if you have thoughts on the pants. And how often do you think about pants? And is it weird, I'm realizing now, as a Canadian, me saying pants when pants to you means underwear?
Well, the good thing is I have a lot of American
Yeah.
friends, so I'm
I
just
did at least not worry that you were thinking that I meant undies.
Oh,
Because
yes.
also, if they'd been wearing just undies, it would have been a lot more accurate than pants.
I was gonna say, because I will have to do like a disclaimer. I know I am not great at the costuming from the time,
Fair.
or like architecture. Those aren't really. If I need to, I learn it. But in terms of the trousers, I don't know. I mean, because obviously Nolan is definitely not thinking about Eastern
Mm-mm.
and that
No.
association between trousers and the East.
But at the same
And
time, he would, like,
and I
they're
don't think
not associated with ancient Greece, so it's just interesting.
no, I wonder if it's perhaps more trying to play a slightly, because I would say it's a slightly gritty
Yes.
ancient world. The palaces are not ornate, they are very bare bones. As Emily Wilson points out, the food doesn't look particularly appealing. This is not like an opulent, like extravagant society.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite plain and simple in a lot of ways, and I wonder if that's a way of kind of representing it,
Hmm.
or maybe as a way of differentiating between leisure and out of warfare. So Telemachus is often wearing trousers because he's not
Mm-hmm.
a warrior, versus the men, Odysseus' crew, they're in the skirts and that sort of traditional clothing.
Yeah, okay.
So I wonder if that's perhaps what he's trying to get at, to show,
Yeah.
differentiate, and also create this sense of like, this isn't the sort of extravagant, spectacular Greece we're necessarily used to. Like,
Yeah.
spectacle comes more in the form of like the adventures
Yeah.
rather than what's happening in Ithaca.
No, that does make sense. And I hadn't made that connection, but that would make sense too, because I think the suitors are wearing pants often, which would link
Yeah.
up with that. No, okay, that makes sense. And I mean, he's definitely clearly trying to go for like a gritty version, and
Yeah.
also like clearly really he Christopher Nolan read a book about the Bronze Age collapse, and he got a little too inspired, I think.
Yes, he was really, fascinated by this concept of like the collapse of a civilization,
Yeah. They used
especially
the word
one like the Bronze Age.
civilization a lot.
Yeah. It- yeah.
Just interesting. Like it felt to me like a little banging me on the head with like an attempt at some kind of introspection for Western violence, but like the most surface level possible introspection on Western violence.
I think, he wants to convey like dangers of our society and colonialism and warfare, but if he were to engage with it too deeply, it it would just be a very different type of film to this epic
Yeah.
narrative. I mean, just to have
And he couldn't have filmed it on illegally occupied, colonized
Whoa.
land, if you're trying to make that point.
I will say, when I heard about that, I was absolutely just shocked, and I found that out after I'd seen the film, and I was just
Yeah,
like,
so
what
did I.
is, like, how can you be doing this narrative? And so it's
Yeah,
somewhat performative. It's in a way that I think you've said is palatable for a Western audience.
Yeah.
But that's a key sort of part of like Hollywood cinema. These big epics don't necessarily push you into states of discomfort about yourself. Because I'm trying to think of like big films that have dealt with these themes and been very uncomfortable to watch and made us question.
They don't. Yeah.
They don't.
They don't get the money to do it is the issue, right? Because
Yeah.
especially in Hollywood right now, Like, it's no longer the creatives that hold the purse strings, it is the corporations.
I mean, yeah, it's been a while since it's been under creatives, and I remember this is something like I had to kind of like emphasize quite a bit in my thesis. It's just being like, this is ultimately an industry, and it's called show business, the film, but like it is a business. They are making money, and so while two things can be true at the same time, Hollywood absolutely can be a shaper of, and film can shape ideology and like attitudes in contemporary society, but they also must still appeal. So they're somewhat hindered. They have to do like both at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like, while, we can have this diversity in the cast, you know, to an extent, you can't dwell on it too much. And while you can deal with because that makes it even way too uncomfortable for modern audiences,
Yeah.
um, or specifically Western white
Yes.
audiences.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It was just, and again, I'm not saying this as if I'm surprised, but I'm interested. I am actually legitimately fascinated by the ways that movies like this are used as Western propaganda, like
Mm,
it for good and bad. Like, I just think it's interesting because, yeah, to make this, he was clearly trying to at least in some way make a commentary on colonialism, and he filmed the sack of Troy on illegally occupied land. And it's just like the cognitive dissonance is so indicative of the West, right? It's like
yeah.
we look at it and think like, how can those two things exist at one time? But
Mm,
like, that is the West, and very specifically the States, and like now more than ever, right? It's this kind of neoliberal attempt to say, like, look, we're better than some. we're, you
yeah.
know, we're like, I think, it's also like in its own way trying to be like, we're better than what the Republicans say we are right now. It's like, are you better than what you were, under Obama though? Like, no, like, it's just, it's fascinating from the perspective of some, like, being somebody who has been paying attention to the American imperialism for the last 15 plus years. Like, it is interesting. And like you said, that with the diversity, I think that a lot of the choices in that respect were a bit of a show, a bit of a
Mm.
performance, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, because the diversity did not in the end get conveyed into like characterizations that mattered, like, you know um Eurylochus. I don't remember the actor who played Eurylochus,
Oh yeah.
but obviously he was like the most, not like the biggest non-white character, I guess.
Yeah.
He wasn't a main character, but and he was quite underserved, especially as Eurylochus is like quite a big character. He's quite interesting. There's a lot of times where he and Odysseus really like have it out. And it was just interesting to me. Like, I just think that there was a lot of like, look, we made it diverse. Like, it was that,
That's that's a real trend in sort of film and TV and cinema. It really, the casting, and so you've already mentioned, like, the backlash, and there was like not really anything being addressed. It's like the actors get left to deal with it themselves, and
Yeah.
this is kind of what happened with Troy Fall of a City. The casting
Yeah.
of dark-skinned black actors as like Achilles, which was the worst one,
Yeah.
and the actor being left to deal with it himself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can come down to the studios just not wanting, like, not allowing
Yeah.
the production team to address these issues. So then it
Yeah.
comes down to the actor, because they don't want that to be the center of,
Yeah. And then they've
publicity.
picked
But
a side. And especially in America right now, like, the money is in not picking a side.
it's it's very performative, and it is very obvious when you have these a genre like Hollywood epic cinema, which is so traditionally masculine and associated with the US and to an extent Britain. Even films like the Italian peplum, actually maybe especially Italian peplum films, are these films are so tied to like white colonialism and whiteness in general. So if you look at it becomes less obvious, I think, to an extent, because in these previous films it was all about like the white male body on display and showing like the greatness, and they have like these supremacist undertones.
Ugh. I
And
think
this is
I
like a
don't know anything about these movies except for what you told me last time. Everything is just slowly
yeah
coming back to me.
coming back like Hercules,
Yeah.
the Italian peplum films about Hercules having white male bodybuilders. Um, it- and so these are like kind of the foundational sort of foundations of now, 21st century Hollywood epic cinema, and it's never escaped that. Like it's always, a white male character as the lead, and he's a family man, values, Western ideas of the nuclear family, man, woman, um, upholds patriarchy. The women exist and they can have these great lines like Cersei in this film, come back to your disguises, and they rape, eat and pillage like they are pigs. So great lines, but it is always a bit shallow
It's the
because
performance. They wanted to give her a good line because then they've done the thing. They gave a
they've
woman a good
ticked a
line.
box.
Yeah, Penelope had a couple of those too. Like there was, I forget which lines, but there
Oh,
was one
something
line
with
she said.
Telemachus, yeah.
Yeah, she said something. Yeah, she stood up to Telemachus once, and like the audience cheered, and I went, "Oh, that was the point. That's what
It's
you
like
wanted to get." Even though the woman is so much bigger than this in the actual like 3,000 years ago.
it's it's just so interesting to see how cinema conveys these ideas, and so it's shaping to an extent. It's like shaping current ideologies and attitudes by including diversity, but that's also to an extent.
Yeah,
Like they could do more diversity in a film, could do less.
yeah. I mean, the whole main
Um,
cast is white,
oh
right?
yeah,
The Eurylochus is not
is
is brown, which is great. I think he's. I don't.
but
I want to
Helen
get.
is
Yeah,
tiny.
Helen is
Lupita
barely
Nyong'o.
there,
I
and
remember
she's
seeing an
Spanish.
interview.
Like,
Yeah, I saw an interview of Lupita Nyong'o, and it was like, "What would you say to Homer if you could go back in time?" And she's like, "I'd say like, why don't you have any women?" And I
I
remember
know.
like
I
people being like, "That's bizarre. There's a lot of women." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay." She, in the nicest way, Lupita Nyong'o, you cannot have read the
no.
Odyssey,
If this is all you've
which is
seen, then
fine.
yeah,
But
because
you've read your script and
yeah,
you're thinking, and so this is a similar thing that happened with Troy. Is people are going to look at this and think this is a very accurate representation, or this is what happens, and you have to be like, well, no, it's definitely a version. I have had like a friend who saw it and she loved it, and she sent me a photo. She'd got Emily Wilson's copy and said, obviously I loved it, and I went, love that for you. Just a heads up, that's going to be really different. That there's going to be stuff in there. There's going to be characters. You're going to be like, what is going on?
you're gonna be like, wait, there's women and they say cool stuff. Oh my god,
Wait, he has sex with these women. Like he's
all of them.
not a loyal husband. Like he's kind of a shitty person, but
But isn't that what makes him
interesting.
so damn interesting? Like that's what I love about Odysseus. And I wasn't under any impression that we were gonna get like a truly complicated Odysseus, but I wish
I
he had a bit more agency in some of his decisions because I swear they took away all his mistakes or they made them like whoopsies instead of him being
oh,
like I don't care.
yeah, no, like the thrumming of the arrow shooting at Polyphemus becomes more of a moment of like silliness rather than hubris, which is
Yeah.
one of his like that's his like big flaw. Is he
Yeah.
is so full of himself.
I mean, that's the thing too is it's funny because it's like there's so much of this that I wanted because it's in the work and it's interesting and like yes, hubris is such an enormous part of Odysseus's character, but also with that hubris comes comedy and whimsy in a way that like I can see Nolan was not interested in, but
Yeah,
I would love to see because it just makes me think of like not just the nobody scene, which is also fascinating, but when they're running from Polyphemus and they're like about to get away, and he's like, "Hey, hey, you should know that the guy who took your eye, my name is Odysseus. I'm the son of Laertes. I'm the king of Ithaca." Like,
it's like it's Odysseus, shut up.
yeah, truly, like it's so entertaining that I just always
Yeah.
think like,
why are we not ever conveying these versions? Because like it's clearly entertaining. Like
Yeah.
it's fun, it's funny. Like that's an epic I would love to watch. It would be so like it would just, and I get it, like, but it's just it's so funny to me the way that those things can't seem to exist in one place in the modern
In a Hollywood, there's a
understanding.
real
Yeah.
disconnect between an ancient epic poem.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, any of them have funny moments. My favorite is
Yeah.
the Aeneid, the race where, like, I think Nisus falls over, and he trips up this other guy so his lover Euryalus can win, and then everyone's like, I got tripped, and Aeneid has to go like, okay, everyone gets a prize now. It's okay. Like, be happy. There's so many silly moments,
Yeah.
but it's such a disconnect between this and ancient epic poems, and because they're so long form,
Yeah.
they can include these moments versus an epic film. I mean, even with 3 hours, like, Nolan could not include any. If he included everything, it would have been so
Yeah.
even really superficial, and it just doesn't fit the tone that audiences have come to expect.
Yeah.
um I think it'd be fun to see those expectations disrupted,
Yeah.
but I Nolan was not was never
No,
going to be the
he was
director for
no.
that. You know who I think would have been a really great director?
Mm.
Guillermo del Toro.
Oh,
Imagine
hell
him.
yes. I
He
would
would have
watch
done
that.
Polyphemus so well. Oh my god,
God.
that would have been. You would have
Oh.
had Nobody. You would have had all these
I want
bits.
him to get a mini series. That's what I want.
Oh, he would do a great, and it would be funny. There would be
Yes.
funny moments
It
because
would
he
be
does that.
whimsy. It would be horrifying and whimsical, and that's what the Odyssey is.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. But then Guillermo del Toro is not Hollywood epic
Yeah.
cinema,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing. These films can, if you want these texts done right, quotation marks
Yeah.
right, you need a completely different genre
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
probably medium, you know.
Yeah. Well, and this is why maybe this is like a silly way to wrap things up, but this is why I maintain and having now seen the Odyssey, I stand by this, that for me personally, the most truthfully vibe wise true to like Greek myth,
Yeah.
most truthful adaptation is still Disney's Hercules.
Mm. I would counter with "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Yes, also good. Also very good. I've only seen that
That
once. I should see it again.
I saw it during the module in my undergrad where I learned kind of I could do classics in film. That was one
Ooh,
of the
yeah.
films we studied, and I was like, hang on, I can merge classics and wait, this is a game. And then here we are. I've just done a PhD and I have no job prospects. So thank you, oh brother, where art thou?
This is what happens when we fall in love with classics first. See, I watched the Odyssey miniseries, which I want to rewatch, but I will always remember when I was like in grade 7, our teacher like rolled it in a TV and had us watch it from like a VHS he'd taped from the TV, and oh, it was delightful. But no, with Disney's, I think
It's fun.
it's so fun in a way that Greek myth is fun. It's
Yeah.
weird in a way that Greek myth is weird, and like on its face too, just the actual myths that it associates with Heracles are like more accurately performed by him than most of the other Greek myth adaptations outside of like Troy and the Odyssey. But like if you think of like Clash of the Titans or like the Immortals, all
Oh
these
yeah.
different ones, like most of those don't actually include stuff that those heroes actually did. It's just like all this weird invented stuff. And so that's what I like about Disney, is because I'm like, no, but at the very least, Heracles did do a good portion of those things. The bar is not high.
Oh dear. I love this. Ending it with a okay, everyone. Odyssey's pretty good or really bad, depending
Yep.
on which of us you ask. And then either go watch Coen Brothers or Disney.
Go watch Disney's Hercules and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and get yourself a good a good Odyssey reception specifically, though.
Oh, that is George Clooney played Odysseus. Like that was
Yeah.
Odysseus.
I
He
need to
had
watch
a
that
gift of
again.
the gab. I think he kept calling it.
No, I need to rewatch that. I've only seen it actually before I got into like doing the podcast. So like I had my classics degree, but it had been years and I wasn't using it. And I remember it was playing at like an outdoor theater here, and I went and watched it in a park with a bunch of my friends, which was delightful. But I need to watch it now with the amount of the Odyssey that lives in my head now.
Yes. That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Next episode.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, okay. I mean, this has been incredibly fun. I won't keep you for much more than over 2 hours that
Fine.
we've already gone. Sometimes, it's about getting different perspectives. So I'm actually very thrilled that this turned into just a chat about the movie, because I think I needed it. I think my listeners needed it. I'm glad that you enjoyed it and have interesting things to say about that. I honestly think that, like, which is why I am curious too if I ever get the chance to watch it again, because truly, like, my feelings on the whole thing were too colored by the the
Yeah.
feelings I had about the female characters, and so now that I've, like, understood them, I think that I would be able to at least appreciate the rest of it without the jump scare that was, like, the choices.
Yeah. I mean, the women, they were never going to be great.
No.
And the thing is, so many characters in that film have been reduced drastically, like their role or cut
Yeah.
out. And so it's just a shame the female characters were also victims of this. Like, my biggest gripe is I understand why, like, stuff was cut out
Yeah.
and for time, and I think, trying to keep the pacing right for the film. But with Calypso, I was I found her baffling. I was like, I
Mhm.
didn't understand what her motivation was for keeping him for so long, and she just was like a vehicle for, narrative exposition.
Yeah.
And
And also, they added a layer of her tricking him, drugging
yeah,
him.
yes, it was, and they kind of justify it like, oh, but she was, trying to help him because he was injured. But she'd
Yeah.
been doing it for so long. She was an odd
Yeah.
female character in how she was depicted. So
That was the thing. I think that if they had just been like, if the women's characters had just been reduced, that's what I was expecting. What ended up making me, like, was so jarring
mm,
was the sort of I mean, I think I use the word abuses, but specifically for Helen, I think it's valid. Like,
oh yeah,
because it's not like the Helen in the Odyssey is a strong
yeah,
woman. Like, if they had given Lupita the role of the actual Helen of the Odyssey, oh my god, what a queen. Like,
yeah. I think that's the thing I would have liked to have seen most,
yeah.
is Helen and Menelaus in a healthy, happy, loving relationship.
Yeah.
Because that's actually accurate. It disrupts the audience expectation from Troy. And Troy Fall of a City, actually, Menelaus is not a good husband in that. I mean, Helen is driven to smoking opium in that
Oh my gosh.
adaptation to get by. She's like
Yeah.
struggling.
I just
So
don't
it
know
would
why
have,
we have to make these women abused. Like, it just felt like put an abuse on a woman who is not historically abused. Just feels like
yeah.
weird.
I think it all comes down to just markers of morality and having to really, it's such a big part of this genre, and they really want to make it clear to you. Telemachus, good. Odysseus, what a great husband. Look at this husband versus that one.
Mhm.
It's like,
Just everything's at
it's
the
all
cost
about,
of the
like, here
women.
is your hero.
Yeah.
It's like Troy, the film, they were often very, like, so clear, like, this is the hero, to the extent Brad Pitt was like, oh my god, I couldn't get out of center frame. It was so obvious, like, I was the protagonist.
Has he said that?
Oh yeah, he said in an interview, he literally said, I couldn't get out of center frame, which was great for me because I'm including a lot of screenshots in my thesis, and he
Yeah.
is center frame. Like,
Yeah. That's so funny.
oh dear.
No, that's the thing. And it's just hard. And, like, the thing is, I'm too exhausted by all of those things coming at the cost of women.
Yeah, that's a fair. So I feel almost, it's maybe a sad thing that I'm so used to it because I explore the masculinity and sexuality. I see it just from this film perspective. I feel it a lot less, I
Yeah.
reckon.
I used to. It's been recent years, I think. I'm too in on the news of what is
Oh,
happening to women right now, and also mostly women of color, mostly in
oh yeah,
America. Like, there's just, and then these these little extra things that made it just the America of it all, especially living in Canada right now. Like, we're no fans of them. Like, they keep threatening to invade us. Like,
Oh
they're
my god,
actively
that's
talking about removing the vote for women. Like, these are things that I just think this is not the time when we should be having movies that come at the cost of women. It's just like, where I'm just like, so I just can't unsee it now. I'm at that point. But yeah, I mean, there's part of me that wishes I saw it less, because I think I would be a happier person in this current
yeah,
moment.
you definitely would be happier, just a little less aware.
Yeah, and that was never going to be me. So here we are. But no, it was just, what I take away from it, thankfully, and every time I'm a little bit bummed about this movie, I'm just reminding myself that I published an Odyssey retelling that, while made for children, is a very true to Homer, like 1,000 times more true to Homer than what Christopher Nolan did. I didn't cut out any of the women. And it's colorful like the ancient world and all this. So it was like, okay, every time I am annoyed at this movie, I'm like, well, my book wouldn't exist without it. So
Yay!
yeah, there was an accurate, colorful adaptation of the Odyssey this year. It just happened to be my children's book.
But we love it.
Exactly. What was my brain had wandered off slightly towards the I have to say, the fact that Zendaya wore like Persian artifacts.
Oh my god, to the premiere.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yes. Like, just if we're talking about just the Americanness of it all, like, are you fucking
Oh,
high?
that was so, because I remember seeing the outfit and being like, oh my god, those look amazing, and then hearing they were actual artifacts, and
from
I'm like,
Iran right now with dubious provenance.
and I'm like, oh, Zendaya, no. Law Roach, no.
Oh my god. Like, it's like the filming a scene about a people being besieged, filming it on a land where the people have been removed forcibly from their homes. Do we not see the connections?
I think that's the thing. This film, so enjoyable as a film.
Yeah.
But absolutely, there are so many things to critique about it, quite rightfully. And it's just there's so much that can be said about this film.
Yeah.
Like, good and bad, I reckon. But
no, and I think it can all be said.
Yeah, I like it. It feels like you've been there to be like, and this is bad, and I've gone, oh yes, did not think of that. And then I go, and here's why they've done this. But it's more like you're saying, here are all these atrocities going on, like, this is violence, and I'm like, but have you considered Antinous is wearing multiple layers as a reference to other films?
No, but this is good. This is a balance. This is what I need, because otherwise I am just the person telling people all of the horrors all the time.
Yeah, I can find like some positives. I wish I could see it again.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much I missed. Like, I hope people listening will kind of just get a bit of like the genre, maybe, and like some of the masculinity. Like,
no, I think this is, I think people are going to really resonate with this, not least because all I've done is like crazy ADHD, but solo ADHD ramblings. Like, they need something that's more cohesive, and I think we made a perfect balance where you were like, here are like cool reception / general thematic cinematic stuff, and I'm just like, here's all the bad. Yeah, exactly. Everything's awful. To the listeners, I just cut out a bunch of us just chatting with each other because we just get along really well. So if that sounded a little clunky, that's why. But thank you so much for doing this. This has been so great, and I truly, honestly, am very appreciative to have like some positive things said to me about the Odyssey. I legitimately needed it, and I think you made some really good points, and I'm very glad to hear that people are liking it, because not everyone has to feel like I feel, and that's good.
Thank you very much. And I've really have enjoyed hearing your perspective as well.
I'm glad you like having everything brought down and a little bit, just made a little bit more depressing.
The world needs more depressing, It's
honest. What can I say? It's real. No, but thank you so much. Is there anything you want to share with listeners about like where to read more from you, or if you are still in the realm of social media at all?
So I'm not on social media, but I do think my thesis is available if anyone ever
Amazing.
fancies reading that on like UCL Discovery.
Can you
It's
remind me
called
what? Yeah, great.
it's called hashtag no homer receptions of the I know.
I'm sure you told me that last time, but that is the fucking greatest. Sorry, I
Credit
cackled through it. Can you say it again so I won't cackle?
It's fine. Hashtag no homer receptions of the masculinity and sexuality of Achilles in 21st century popular media. And a good portion well, the film chapter is about Hollywood epic cinema and
Amazing.
all the conventions. So you can see more concrete examples if you're interested. I have a ton of memes in there as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, so to talk about that, Song of Achilles, Hades, the video game, and Troy Fall of a City, the TV show. Oh, and Troy the film.
Well, and to the listeners, I know I've like re-aired our episode recently, fairly recently. Maybe it was over Pride. I don't know. Anyway, there's another episode where we talked more about Achilles specifically that we had another great time. So if
Oh yeah.
anyone wants to hear that, you should go check it out too, because that was equally a delight. And thankfully, specifically less of me going like, but here's the terrible thing that Christopher Nolan did.
Yeah, I think as far as I know, Troy was not filmed on illegally occupied territory. So,
And isn't that a win? Wow.
the
Gosh.
bar is so low.
The bar is in the ground. My God. What a way to end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening. Again, enormous thanks to Charlotte. We had so much fun, and in the moment, I didn't feel like I was so hogging the conversation. But listening back, I'm like, that's really, really what you did. But thank you, Charlotte, for powering through and for having a great time with me. I think it's just a fascinating conversation. I'm really glad to have other people's thoughts and opinions about the movie. It really adds to mine, and also I'm obviously so kind of consumed by my frustration about, how he treated the women that I haven't thought much about the masculinity take. But it's really interesting to hear that perspective, particularly as someone who studies it from a much more objective place. And generally, it was so nice to have this conversation. So I hope you all enjoyed it. A quick update. You may have noticed there was a reading episode on Tuesday. There will be another reading episode next Tuesday and another conversation after that. And then Michaela will be taking you all on a little history journey. We are just waiting for her to wrap up all the final pieces on her undergrad thesis, which is so exciting, and also means that when she's done, I have her to take on some more of the show, and we're hopefully gonna get back to regular new episodes and the regular sharing the load between us and history and myth and conversations and so much fun. So stay tuned for that. Let's Talk About Myths Baby is written and produced by me, Liv Albert, and Michaela Penguish, who is the co-host and producer, and the Hermes to my Olympians. And the podcast is part of the Memory Collective Podcast Network, where we are very slowly but resolutely trying to do great things. Have you checked out our other shows? I'll find a way to promote them better soon. And Select Music is by Luke Chaos. Thank you all so goddamn much. It means the world to me. Stay tuned for more. You're all very cool and nice. Oh, also, if you got this far, I'll announce it elsewhere later, but this is me just remembering in this moment. I have figured out how to put the signed book plates on my online store, and so technically my store is now open. I'm a little afraid of what it'll look like if and when people purchase things that I have to deal with the tariffs, but I think we have managed to figure out pricing so that it is possible. For the stickers, the pricing is very reasonable because I can send them in letter mail. For everything that is not a sticker, the pricing is a little bit off the rails because I have to pay enormous amounts of tariffs in order to send them into America. And so I think we figured out alternatives if you are not in the States, but in the States, just a warning. And maybe just buy a bunch of stickers, because then I can just put them in an envelope and nobody will be the wiser. But primarily, these bookplate stickers, I've priced them as low as I can just to offset the actual like envelope and stamp and the process of me bringing them in and everything. But otherwise, I really want those to be accessible. If you've bought my book, you should be able to have a sticker. So I've tried to price them as low as possible, just enough so that I am not at a loss, because I currently do not have enough money coming in to be at a loss. So check that out if you're interested, and I will announce it better and more soon. mythsbaby.com/shop. I don't know. From mythsbaby.com, you'll find it easily, though. I am Liv, and I love this shit.